Good evening, my friends. Welcome back. Let me get TikTok up and running, and then we will be all ready to go. Someone got angry at me for politely turning them down for help on my channel because I didn't know them. Like, what? I don't get how that works. Like, they got mad over a soft... No, that happens. You find that people in this day and age are very aggressive in this industry, Matty. Bobby, hello, I'm here, but just listening. Didn't sleep well last night. Hopefully sleep better tonight. I have two clients tomorrow, one at 8, why? And one at 10. Don't worry about the idiots, Matty. Hi to all. Bobby, it's very good to see you. I'm glad you could drop in. Bear, hello. Molly, hello. Matty, hello. Capitan, hello. Welcome in, my friends. It's so very good to see you all. Tonks and Black Knight. Black Knight, you said I got lost trying to get here. It happens, but the portals open when you're ready for them. Val, you did indeed make it. You're right on time. We're just getting ready to start, so you are in prime position for story time. Fill your drink. Fill your seat. We're on chapter 16 of Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince. Yeah, you get a lot of people who can help you, who know a lot about all kinds of things. In general, if people are offering to help you with anything that has to do with social media or Twitch, especially if they want you to sign a contract or anything like that, the answer is always no. Mary Beth, hello, good to see you. Welcome in. Just in general, don't. If anybody offers to help, just say no. Yeah, most of them are fraudsters. Some of them are just people who are trying to get an in and make some money. But for the most part, it's all scams. So just avoid it. Bear, how you doing today, brother? How's your mother? How are things out that way? Tonks, thank you for the heart meal of tips to the tavern keeper, always appreciated. Kicking us off early there. I'd like to help, I promise I won't scam you, winks. Well, and if somebody offers to help you, or somebody says that they have something important to tell you, and then you turn them down and they get very aggressive, that's usually indicative of scammers. Scammers do that. They get very angry and aggressive about it. Jill, hello, welcome in. So good to see you. I'm so very glad you could join us. Oh, my friends, we are I think we're about halfway through book 6 of Harry Potter. We've only got one book left. Petra, hello. I did look into the Guild-Defined UK recipe. I did see it. I haven't had a chance to bake anything yet, but I'll let you know when I try it how enjoyable it is. And things are going well in the tavern. I had a little bit of an issue tonight because for some reason the YouTube portal didn't want to open up for us this evening. But I was able to get it sorted, and now hopefully everyone can see me. Mom's good, I'm struggling. What you got going on, Bear? Is your back bothering you? Or is it something in the old cranium that's got you pinned down? Tired. We've got 10 days of rain in the forecast, and my head feels it. Other than that, good. That is quite a lot of rain. I would do great and terrible things for that amount of rain. Although out here where we live, that amount of rain would most definitely cause the whole city would wash away. Not that that would necessarily be a bad thing. The city is very dirty, but I both love it and hate it. I wish it would rain here where I live. It's been very humid. I hate because when I grew up, it rains a lot because my uncle lives in a little village outside of Oslo in Norway. And I grew up in sort of lower central Ireland, and it rains a lot in lower central Ireland, a lot. and so it's very humid. So there's a lot of moisture in the air, but it's never hot. And on the rare occasion that the sun is out for a while, then it does get a little bit warm. But for the most part, it's always cool because it's always raining and there's always moisture in the air. But voice of the void, narrator, greetings from the void. Oh, I do enjoy a good message from the void. Welcome into the tavern, my friend. So very glad that you could join us. I'm free Saturday. I can hold off stream until after. All right, Matty, sounds good to me. We could use the rain here. We've had at least 5 fires that are burning now, and they could use a good drenching. Yes, indeed. Stopping in to say hello, Miss Stories, but have to wake up very early for a new job. Well, new job is always good news, so I'm glad to hear it. We're sad that we don't get to have you, but there will be a few more opportunities to join in for stories throughout coming on, so sounds like perfect coffee weather in South Central Ireland. Yeah, I mean, I would say so. A lot of people will go out and they'll have themselves a brew or a coffee or something that they like. Just so you know, I aspire to be the storyteller you are already. That is a fine compliment, Void. Thank you very much for that. Although I will say, I hope that you become the storyteller like you, because I think that you will probably be a spectacular storyteller. If you put your mind and your heart into it, and you really just want to tell great stories, I think you'll do that. And yet, Jessica, all is well. We're finally having stable portals here in the tavern, which I am very excited about, and it's all good things. Okay, babe, hello, welcome in, so very good to see you. I'm going to Greece for 3 months next year, so I get a Greek summer. Greece in the summer is very hot, Matty. Like, Greek summers are very warm. I've only been to Greece in the summertime once, but the one time that I was there, it was very hot. I was there for a couple of months with my grandfather when I was young, and I just remember being miserable most of the time I was there. The only place I remember being more miserable in the heat than in Greece is here in California, in Florida, and in the time I spent in the Middle East with my grandfather. Those places are all dreadfully hot. I can't stand that kind of heat. I would never willingly go to anywhere in the Mediterranean areas because it is just so hot. Florida is beautiful. It's a beautiful state. The wetlands are very beautiful. The mangroves are beautiful, but Florida is so hot. Florida and Tennessee are far too hot for me. It's even too hot for me here. Like, I don't like the Nevada heat. I don't like the California heat. I don't like the Arizona heat. I would agree with you wholeheartedly, Castle. It's very hot. I can't do it. There are a lot of really beautiful places that are hot. I have lived in Havana, Florida. It's disgusting. It's like swimming through the air. Like, Florida is really beautiful. If you can put up with the heat, Florida is beautiful. But I can't do that. Well, if you live in northern New York, you're actually probably farther north than most Canadians are, Val. It's funny that Canadians talk about being very far north, and it's this silly sort of semantic thing. But most Canadians live further south than the Americans who live in the farthest northern areas of America. Because most Canadians live in like that little dip up in the northeast section of the United States. Oh, I love it. I literally live 20 minutes from Montreal in New York. There you go. I went to Pompeii twice and it was miserably hot. I live in Tennessee and it's gross right now. Yeah, see, I love the places, because I've been to Thailand too, and it gets very hot in Thailand. And like, they're beautiful. These places are beautiful, but they're so hot. I've never been to Congo, but I don't remember the name of the place where I went with my grandfather, but we were in South Africa, we were in Cape Town, and then we traveled up into Western Africa, and there was this really beautiful jungle area that we like flew over, but we didn't stop. Like we didn't land there. It was very pretty, but just the time that we were in Cape Town, it was ludicrously hot. It was very very hot. I'm living in Virginia right now, and it's nasty. It's hot and humid. I want the rain. Yeah, the American South is really pretty. Is really pretty, but yeah, yeah, Petra, I can't live in the heat. I love going to visit my brother in Japan. Didn't love that I happened to during monsoon season. Yeah, yeah. Well, yeah. So Canada. Most Canadians live in that little dip at the upper part of the northeastern part uh, of America, where you have like New Jersey, New York, and Maine, and all of that. There's like the Massachusetts and Ohio and Indiana. There's like that little dip right there. Most Canadians live in that dip. Like I think it's like 80% of Canadians live in that little dip right there. So if you live in like New York or Maine or Rhode Island, you live farther north than most Canadians do. Now there are some in like Saskatoon and Saskatchewan and all of that who live out that way, but he lives in Cali. I do indeed live in California. Not willingly at this point. I'm trying to get out of the heat, but someday soon I'll be back to mountains and trees. That's the goal. When we open the tavern, it'll be somewhere with mountains and trees and rain. It's too hot for me in California. I know a lot of Californians talk about it being dry heat. It may be a dry heat, but it's still far too hot. I I grew up, it was nice, wet and cool, and California heat is still far too hot for me. California heat, Arizona heat, Nevada heat, desert heat is just as bad as wet heat. It's just a different kind of bad. Instead of boiling, I'm broiling. It's it's all the same, all the same. But yeah, Petro, I don't like the heat at all. Hello, maybe I'm having trouble still. I see you, Milu. Esther, hello. Esther says, good evening, Castle. Elsie and I trust that you and your family are in good health. We are in most good health. Somebody with a bunch of squiggly lines said bullshit over on YouTube. I can't even read that. I have no idea. It's just gibberish and nonsense is the name, and then the word bullshit. I'd love to be able to go to Cape Town. My mom is from Johannesburg and my nana is from Durban. Yeah, it's really pretty out there. There are a lot of really beautiful places that way. Tennessee has mountains, trees, and rains. Yes, 100% Destiny, but also, as aforementioned, is swampy and very hot. I could not tell you. 100 is hot no matter where it is. Hot is just hot. Right, right, exactly that. Southern Ontario, the area I'm in, uh, but I'm from Manitoba. Interesting. Castle, in my locality, there are numerous trees and mountains, creating a picturesque and cool environment. The area is teeming with diverse wildlife. Well, yeah, there are a lot of pretty places in Australia too. Most places in Australia are very hot, but there are a few really pretty places in Australia. Value said, I'm so looking forward to coming to the tavern. I'm looking forward to when we have a place for you all to come to, for sure. I lived in Colorado for a little while I understand the desert heat. Yeah, like northern Colorado is all right. Southern Colorado is very hot. I bought and read all of the Percy Jackson books. It's been too hot. I've lived outside of California and have been to many a state. I choose California every time. I've lived in 13 different countries, and I've lived in 2 different states, though I've visited all of the United States. Except for I've never been to Hawaii, and I've never really been to Alaska. I've stopped off in Alaska on a airplane ride, but I never actually went anywhere. We were like on the airstrip. We were there for a half a day, and then that was it. California has its charms. I prefer Northern California to Southern California. but there are much there. I'm not built for this kind of heat. It's just simply that. I'm not built for this kind of heat. I am built for mountains and snow and rain, um, or being underneath a mountain. Songbird, thank you for the heart me and for the Go Popular. Tips to the tavern keeper always appreciated. Yeah, there are plenty of pretty places in California. California has some of the most diverse landscapes. But to be in the good areas of California, you have to be willing to pay like $1.12 billion for a house, and I sadly don't make that kind of money. There's not quite that much money in storytelling, sadly. Would you like it if someone soaked cheese in pineapple juice and then made it into a sandwich and gave it to you without knowing? No, I would say that person's no longer my friend. If that happened, if that was a thing someone did to me, we would not be friends anymore. Sorry, Southern Ontario is a comment I made when you were talking about the part of Canada where the majority. Oh yes, yeah, like most of the Canadians live in that little area down in the dip of. W- my brain's not functioning. It's an interesting thought. We had Kookaburras and Rosella's visit yesterday. Interesting. Castle was born in Tasmania, which is characterized by its cold climate, frequent rainfalls, and abundant mountain terrains and forests. Tasmania experiences snowfall during certain periods of the year. And Tasmania, I've never been to Tasmania, but Tasmania is very beautiful. Harry Potter, this Daggerfall music, I don't know, it's a playlist that's supposed to be Harry Potter-esque. I couldn't tell you exactly what it is, Wesley. Also, hello. Colorado is beautiful if you like the mountains, and okay with ice and snow. We plan to go to Montana. We visited up in the Kalispell Flathead area, and that's where we would like to build the tavern because it's very pretty up there. Lots of really wonderful trees and rivers and so on. Huh? Yeah, and there's an airport right there, so it'd be easy for people to come and visit. Need to venture northward, Washington, Oregon. I love Washington and Oregon. They're beautiful. The problem is that they're just as expensive as California to do anything in. So, as much as I would very much love to have a mountain tavern in Oregon, it's rough. I used to live there, but it gets hot in Montana. It does in the lower part of Montana. We're planning on going as far north as we can get. I have a little less than 20 minutes of Wi-Fi, John. DP that poke rap for me real quick. No can do. We only do songs on the middle, Wesley. You know that. The airport is the easy part, right? Yeah, we would be where we plan to build the tavern. We would be about 30 minutes from an airport if we can manage. Nathan, hello, my friend. Welcome in. Thank you for the Dini. It's always appreciated. Tips of the tavern keep us certainly appreciated, my friend. All right, friends. We're getting to the Harry Potter right now. Castle Montana is renowned for its mountainous terrains and snowy winters, creating picturesque scenes of snow-laden trees atop mountains. The big snowy mountains situated in North Lewiston exemplify this phenomenon. The Great House Peak, the highest point, providing panoramic views and surrounding landscapes. That's why we'd like to go there. We plan on looking at a bunch of places before we actually decide where we're going to open the tavern doors. But the lady has her heart set on Montana. I mean, if I could go home and do it, if I could open the tavern in Ireland, I would. But starting businesses in Ireland is damn near impossible. How would anybody get there? Yeah, I could technically, we could try to buy an island. Like, we could work towards building funds to buy an island, but then no one would be able to get to us. So, hands castle my adoption papers. We'll gladly adopt you, Matty. Songbird, thank you for the teeny deenies and for the You're Awesome, for the hot puff, for the demon hunters, and for the teeny deeny hot dog. Oh, they made a new teeny deeny and no one told me. An island would be cool, beachy and mountainy. I would love to build on an island. I don't think it would be practical for business purposes. Castle, I personally would love to visit Montana with Elsie. I think that that would be spectacular. That's true. I want a Greek island now. See, it would be too hot on a Greek island, though. Like, the reason I love my island is nice and cold. Yeah, like my island in like Ireland is cold for the most part. Like you rarely get over 80 degrees anywhere in Ireland, but especially where I grew up, you rarely get over 80 degrees.
If we didn't have to make the money, then I would totally do the island.
Yeah, yeah.
And just move all of my family there. Like, this is where we live now.
All right. Let's get into story time, friends. How about that? That's what we're all here for. Well, it did work, Wesley, but now you said it didn't work, and now I have to not let it work because you said it didn't work. So I don't make the rules. I do make the rules. I don't make the rules, but that's how we have to do it now. Val, thank you for the DDs, and Nathan, thank you for the heart me. I appreciate you guys. Tips to the Tavern Keeper, always appreciated. There's this wonderful invention called a boat. Ads in 5. Okay, let's run the ads on Twitch real quick, and then we'll come back. We'll run ads on Twitch. We'll have 3 minutes. So story time starts in 3 minutes, everyone. From right sometime soon. No, right now. 3 whole minutes. Because if I run the 3 minutes, then it gives us 65 minutes without ads. Whereas if I do it like the 2 or 1.5 or 2 minutes at a time, it only gives us 30 minutes. I absolutely despise Twitch's ad policy. I hate it. Castle storytelling shanties and engaging rants are most enjoyable. I'm glad you still enjoy yourself, Esther. You and Bear and many of the other folk have been here for over a year now, and you're still enjoying yourselves. There's something to be said about that. I'll go as fast as I can, Wesley. I'll read so quickly you'll get 10 minutes of Harry Potter in 5 minutes. Oh, that's true. We could get a tavern ferry where people have to get ferried to and from the island. Be the perfect setup for a horror story too, if we so decide. If the lady and I decide we don't like being storytellers and we'd rather be serial killers, we can then switch jobs pretty easy. Who wants to get their pilot's license and put a small airport on our imaginary island? I mean, it doesn't even have to be an imaginary island. We could just go and conquer Iceland like we had initially planned way back in the day. Yeah, like the restaurant movie. I can't remember what it's called either. I think it's called The Menu. I've never watched it, but I know what you're talking about. Now it's going to get you banned from TikTok. Wait, what did I say? It's going to get me banned from TikTok? Frost? The serial killer thing? Disclaimer for TikTok, I was joking. It was a joke. Yeah. 5 Nights at Castles. Right, yeah, we had 5 Nights at Castles. Castle, over the past year, I've thoroughly enjoyed your storytelling shanties and runs. Yeah, truly exceptional. You flatter me deeply, Esther. You flatter me deeply. You got 45 more seconds, Wesley. You got 45 more seconds. A horror experience you won't want to leave. Yeah, exactly. Can you think of a way to trigger a rant? We don't want to rant though, because then Wesley won't get any Harry Potter. That would be terrible. Songbird, thank you for the Dini with a hot dog. Alright, adds in 3, 2, 1. Alright, we're back. Let us begin Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince. Chapter 16, A Very Frosty Christmas. So, Snape was offering to help him. He was definitely offering to help him. If you ask that once more, said Harry, I'm going to stick this sprout. I'm only checking, said Ron. They were standing alone at the Burrows' kitchen sink, peeling a mountain of sprouts for Mrs. Weasley. Snow was drifting past the window in front of them. Yes, Snape was offering to help him, said Harry. He said he'd promised Malfoy's mother to protect him. Said he'd made an unbreakable oath or something. An unbreakable vow, said Ron, looking stunned. Nah, he can't have. Are you sure? Yes, I'm sure, said Harry. Why? What does it mean? Well, you can't break an unbreakable vow. Yeah, I'd worked that much out for myself, funnily enough. What happens if you break it, then? You die, said Ron simply. Fred and George tried to make me make one when I was about 5. I nearly did, too. I was holding hands with Fred and everything when Dad found us. He went mental, said Ron, with a reminiscent gleam in his eyes. Only time I've ever seen Dad as angry as Mum. Fred reckons his left buttock has never been the same since. Yeah, well, passing over Fred's left buttock. I beg your pardon, said Fred's voice as the twins entered the kitchen. Ah, George, look at this. They're using NARS and everything. Bless 'em. I'll be 17 in 2 and a bit months' time, said Ron grumpily. And then I'll be able to do it by magic. Meanwhile, said George, sitting down in the kitchen table and putting his feet up, we can enjoy a demonstration of the correct use of a whoopsie-daisy. You made me do that, said Ron angrily, sucking his cut thumb. You wait. When I'm 17, I'm sure you'll dazzle us with all the hitherto unsuspected magical skills, yawned Fred. And speaking of hitherto unsuspected skills, Ronald, said George, what is this I hear from Jenny that you and a young lady called, unless our information is faulty, Lavender Brown? Ron turned a little pink, but did not look displeased as he turned back to the sprouts. Mind your business. What a snappy retort, said Fred. I really don't know how you think of him. Now, what we want to know is, how did it happen? What do you mean? Did she have an accident or something? What? Well, how did she sustain such extensive brain damage? Careful now. Mrs. Weasley entered the room just in time to see Ron throw a sprout knife at Fred, who had turned it into a paper airplane with one lazy flick of his wand. Ronald! She said furiously. Don't ever let me see you throwing knives again! I won't, said Ron. Let you see, he added under his breath, as he turned back to the Sprout Mountain. Ghost Tester. The best ghost we have, yes indeed. Let's see.
Fred, George, sorry dears, but Remus is arriving tonight, so Bill will have to squeeze in with you two.
No problem, said George.
Then, as Charlie isn't coming home, that just leaves Harry and Ron in the attic. And if Fleur shares with Ginny...
That'll make Ginny's Christmas, muttered Fred.
Everyone should be comfortable. Well, they'll have a bed anyways,
said Mrs. Weasley, sounding slightly harassed. Percy definitely not showing his ugly face, then? Asked Fred. Mrs. Weasley turned away before she answered.
No, he's busy, I expect, at the ministry.
Or he's the world's biggest prat, said Fred, as Mrs. Weasley left the kitchen. One of the two. Well, Let's get going then, George. Wow, that music is very loud.
Yeah, I was like, what?
So loud, hang on.
What is happening?
I don't know why they put random songs in these relaxing playlists that suddenly go off like you're in the midst of a battle scene in Lord of the Rings. Good God. Alright, where was I? What are you two up to? Asked Ron. Can't you help us with these sprouts? You could use your wand and then we'll be free to go too. No, I don't think we can do that, said Fred seriously. It's very character building stuff, learning to peel sprouts without magic. Makes you appreciate how difficult it is for muggles and squibs. And if you want people to help you, Ron, added George, throwing the paper airplane at him, I wouldn't chuck knives at him. Just a little hint. We're off to the village. There's a very pretty girl working at the paper shop who thinks my card tricks are something marvellous. Almost like real magic. Gits, said Ron darkly, watching Fred and George setting off across the snowy yard. But it only taken them 10 seconds and then we could have gone too. I couldn't, said Harry. I promised Dumbledore I wouldn't wander off while I was staying here. Oh, yeah, said Ron. He peeled a few more sprouts and then said, Are you going to tell Dumbledore what you heard Snape and Malfoy saying to each other? Yep, said Harry. I'm going to tell anyone who can put a stop to it. And Dumbledore's top of the list. I might have another word with your dad too. Pity you didn't hear what Malfoy was actually doing, though. I couldn't have done, could I? That was the whole point. He was refusing to tell Snape. Give me just a second, friends. Turn this down just a smidge more. There we go. Hopefully we're doing alright over there. Yeah, we're doing alright on TikTok. Kayla, hello, hello! Well, because people wouldn't have cared as much about Percy. Usually when authors kill off somebody, it's not because that person, it's not because it made sense for the plot, it's usually they do it to be impactfully edgy. You rarely find an author who kills somebody because it served the plot properly, or because it made sense with the way that the story was going. Kayla, hello, welcome in. Thank you for the heart fingers. Very good to see you. Welcome, welcome. Alright. There was silence for a moment or two, then Ron said, Of course, you know what they'll all say. Dad and Dumbledore and all of them. They'll say Snape isn't really trying to help Malfoy. He's just trying to find out what Malfoy was up to. They didn't hear him, said Harry flatly. No one's as good an actor. No one's that good an actor. Not even Snape. Yeah, just saying though, said Ron. Harry turned to face him, frowning. You think I'm right, though? Yeah, I do, said Ron hastily. Seriously, I do. But they're all convinced Snape's in the Order, aren't they? Harry said nothing. It had already occurred to him that this would be the most likely objection to his new evidence. He could hear Hermione now. Obviously, Harry. He was pretending to offer help so he could trick Malfoy into telling him what he's doing. This was pure imagination, however. He had no opportunity to tell Hermione what he had overheard. She had disappeared from Slughorn's party before he returned to it. Or, so he had been informed by the irate McLaggen, and she had already gone to bed by the time he returned to the common room. As he and Ron had left for the Burrow early the next day, he had barely had time to wish her happy Christmas and tell her he had some very important news when he got back from the holiday. He was not entirely sure that she had heard him, though. Ron and Lavender had been saying a thoroughly non-verbal goodbye just behind him at the time. Still, Hermione would not have been able to deny one thing. Malfoy was definitely up to something, and Snape knew it. So Harry felt fully justified in saying, "I told you so," which he had done several times to Ron already. Harry did not get the chance to speak to Mr. Weasley, who was working very long hours at the Ministry until Christmas Eve night. The Weasleys and their guests were sitting in the living room, which Ginny had decorated so lavishly that it was rather like sitting in a paper chain explosion. Fred, George, Harry, and Ron were the only ones who knew that the angel on top of the tree was actually a garden gnome who had bitten Fred on the ankle as he pulled up carrots for Christmas dinner. Stupefied, painted gold, and stuffed into a miniature tutu with small wings glued to its back, it glowered down at them all, the ugliest angel Harry had ever seen, with a large bald head like a potato and rather hairy feet. Yes. Yes? Oh, are you talking to Everett?
Yeah.
Kayla, thank you for the deenies. They're deeply appreciated. Hermione pushes up her imaginary glasses. Actually, we're almost to 1/5 of the goal. Oh, the Deanie goal. Thank you, Kayla. That's amazing. I can't see it right now. Where is it? Yes, we are almost there. Thank you kindly. Who hired Mariador to do the music? I have no idea. It's a random playlist, Wesley. It's not too loud over on TikTok, is it, Kayla, Wesley? Music's not too loud for you guys, is it? It shouldn't be, but just one more teeny deeny. That's all we need. You guys don't have to feel like you have to give anything, though. I appreciate you. We're gonna turn this down just a little bit. There we go. Nathan, thank you for the TDDD, my friend. I appreciate you. Tips to the tavern keeper, always appreciated, friends. Back, sorry had to feed my sourdough. It's quite alright, quite alright. Tyson, hello! Christy, hello. Guests, Castle, Una, the boy and pets too. Very good to see you. Welcome in. Ghost Esther is still here as well. Trying really hard not to kill it. I've fingers crossed for you, love. There have been more sourdough deaths than there have been sourdough lives. Alright. Continuing on. They were all supposed to be listening to a Christmas broadcast by Mrs. Weasley's favourite singer, Celestina Warbeck, whose voice was warbling out of a large wooden wireless set. Fleur, who seemed to find Celestina very dull, was talking so loudly in the corner that a scowling Mrs. Weasley kept pointing her wand at the volume control, so that Celestina grew louder and louder under cover of a particularly jazzy number called A Cauldron Full of Hot, Strong Love. Fred and George started a game of exploding snap with Ginny. Ron kept shooting Bill and Fleur covert looks as though hoping to pick up tips. Meanwhile, Remus Lupin, who was thinner and more ragged-looking than ever, was sitting beside the fire, staring into the depths as though he could not hear Celestina's voice. "Oh, come, stir my cauldron, and if you do it right, I'll boil up some hot, strong love to keep you warm tonight." Well, that's, it's evocative.
We danced to this when we were 18,
said Mrs. Weasley, wiping her eyes and knitting.
Do you remember, Arthur?
Said Mr. Weasley, who had been nodding over the satisma he was peeling. "Ah, yes, marvellous tune." With an effort, he sat up a little straighter and looked around at Harry, who was sitting next to him. "Sorry about this," he said, jerking his head towards the wireless. Celestina broke into the chorus as pointing his head towards the wireless, Celestina broke into the chorus. "Be over soon." "It's no problem," said Harry, grinning. "Has it been busy at the Ministry?" "Very," said Mr. Weasley. "I wouldn't mind if we were getting anywhere, but of the 3 arrests we made in the last couple of months, I doubt that one of them is a genuine Death Eater. Only I don't repeat that, Harry, he added quickly, looking much more awake all of a sudden. They're still not holding Stan Shunpike, are they? Asked Harry. I'm afraid so, said Mr. Weasley. I know Dumbledore's tried appealing directly to Scrimgeour about Stan, but, I mean, anybody who's actually interviewed him agrees that he's about as much of a Death Eater as this Satsuma. But the top levels want to look as though they're making some progress, and 3 arrests sounds better than 3 mistaken arrests and release. But again, this is all top secret. I won't say anything, said Harry. He hesitated for a moment, wondering how best to embark on what he wanted to say. As he marshalled his thoughts, Celestina Warbeck began a ballad called You Charmed the Heart Right Out of Me. Mr. Weasley, you know what I told you at the station when we were setting off for school? I checked, Harry, said Mr. Weasley at once. I went and searched the Malfoy's house, and there was nothing, either broken or whole, that shouldn't have been there. Yeah, I know, I saw in the Prophet that you'd looked, but this is something different. Well, something more. As he told Mr. Weasley everything he had overheard between Malfoy and Snape, as Harry spoke, he saw Lupin's head turn a little toward him, taking in every word. When he had finished, there was silence, except for Celestina's crooning. Oh, my poor heart, where has it gone? It's left me for a spell. Has it occurred to you, Harry, said Mr. Weasley, that Snape was simply pretending to offer help so he could find out what Malfoy was up to? Said Harry quickly. Yeah, I thought you'd say that. But how do we know? It isn't our business to know, said Lupin unexpectedly. He had turned his back on the fire and now faced Harry and Mr. Weasley. It's Dumbledore's business. And Dumbledore trusts Severus. And that ought to be good enough for all of us. But, said Harry, just say Dumbledore's wrong about Snape. People have said it many times. Comes down to whether or not you trust Dumbledore's judgment. I do. Therefore I trust Severus. But Dumbledore can make mistakes, argued Harry. He says it himself. And you, he looked at Lupin straight in the eye. Do you honestly like Snape? I neither like nor dislike Severus, said Lupin. No, Harry, I'm speaking the truth, he added as Harry pulled a skeptical expression. We should never be bosom friends, perhaps. But after all that happened between James, Sirius, and Severus, there's too much bitterness there. But I do not forget that during the year I taught at Hogwarts, Severus made the Wolfsbane potion for me every month, made it perfectly, so that I did not have to suffer as I usually do at the full moon. But he accidentally let it slip that you're a werewolf, so you had to leave, said Harry angrily. Lupin shrugged. That news would have leaked out anyway. We both know he wanted my job. But he could have wreaked much worse damage on me by tampering with the potion. He kept me healthy. I must be grateful. Maybe he didn't dare mess with the potion with Dumbledore watching him, said Harry. You're determined to hate him, Harry, said Lupin with a faint smile. And I understand, with James as your father and Sirius as your godfather. But you have inherited an old prejudice. By all means, tell Dumbledore what you have told Arthur and me. But do not expect him to share your view of the matter. Do not expect him to be surprised by what you tell him. It might have been Dumbledore's orders that Severus questioned Draco. And now you've torn it quite apart. I'll thank you to give back my heart. Celestina ended her song on a very long, high-pitched note, and a loud applause issued out of the wireless, which Mrs. Weasley joined in with enthusiastically. Is it over? said Fleur loudly. Thank goodness. That was an horrible... Shall we have a nightcap then? Said Mr. Weasley loudly, leaping to his feet. Who wants eggnog? A masterful man if there ever was one. Erin, hello. Ashley, hello. Welcome in. It's good to see you. Lyoko, welcome. So very glad to see you. Chantella, thank you for the heart me and for the Go Populars. Lyoko, thank you for the lightning bolts. Very kind. Tips to the tavern keeper, always appreciated. Did I miss anyone else coming in? I don't think so. Looks like we got everybody. But the runs are so enjoyable. I've been banned from starting runs today. Not banned, just a temporary hiatus. Temporary hiatus. Crystal, I didn't see you come in, but hello. Good to see you. Welcome in. Belinda, long time no see. So very glad that you could join us. Broken by Design Studios, welcome in. So very glad that you could join us. You've marked the tavern on your map. You should be able to find your way back now. Very next time you seek a story. Alright, well, let's see. Where was I? What have you been up to lately? Harry asked Lupin, as Mr. Weasley bustled off to fetch eggnog, and everybody else stretched and broke into conversation. Oh, I've been underground, said Lupin. Almost literally. That's why I haven't been able to write, Harry. Sending letters to you would have been something of a giveaway. What do you mean? I've been living among my fellows, my equals, said Lupin. Werewolves, he added, at Harry's look of incomprehension. Nearly all of them are on Voldemort's side. Dumbledore wanted a spy, and here I was, ready-made. He sounded a little bitter, and perhaps realized it, but he smiled more warmly as he went on. I am not complaining. It is necessary work, and who can do it better than I? However, it has been difficult to gain their trust. I bear unmistakable signs of having tried to live among wizards, you see. Whereas they have shunned normal society and live on the margins, stealing and sometimes killing to eat. How come they like Voldemort? They think that under his rule they will have a better life, said Lupin. And it's hard to argue with Greyback out there. Who's Greyback? You haven't heard of him? Lupin's hands closed convulsively over his lap. Fenrir Greyback is, perhaps, the most savage werewolf alive today. Regards it as his mission in life to bite and to contaminate as many people as possible. He wants to create enough werewolves to overcome the wizards. Voldemort has promised him prey in return for his services. Greyback specializes in children. Bite them young, he says, and raise them away from their parents. Raise them to hate normal wizards. Voldemort has threatened to unleash him upon people's daughters and sons. It is a threat that usually produces good results. Lupin paused and then said, It was Greyback who picked me. What? Said Harry, astonished. When you were a kid, you mean? Yes. My father had offended him. I did not know. For a very long time, the identity of the werewolf who had attacked me. I even felt pity for him, thinking that he had had no control. Knowing by then how it felt to transform. But Greyback is not like that. At the full moon, he positions himself as close to his victims, ensuring that he is near enough to strike. He plans it all. And this is the man Voldemort is using to marshal the werewolves. I cannot pretend that my particular brand of reasoned argument is making much headway against Greyback's insistence that we werewolves deserve blood, and that we are to revenge ourselves on normal people. Bless you, my love. But you are normal, said Harry fiercely. You just got a problem. Lupin burst out laughing. Sometimes you remind me of James. He called it my furry little problem in company. Maybe they're People were under the impression that I owned a badly behaved rabbit. He accepted a glass of eggnog from Mr. Weasley and a word of thanks. Looking slightly more cheerful, Harry, meanwhile, felt a rush of excitement. This last mention of his father had reminded him that there was something he had been looking forward to asking Lupin. Have you ever heard of someone called the Half-Blood Prince? The Half-Blood what? Prince, said Harry, watching him closely for signs of recognition. There are no wizard princes, said Lupin, now smiling. Is this a title you're thinking of adopting? I should have thought being the chosen one would be enough. No, it's nothing to do with me, said Harry indignantly. The Half-Blood Prince is someone who used to go to Hogwarts. I've got his old potions book. He wrote spells all over it. Spells he invented. One of them was Levicorpus. Oh, that one had a great deal of vogue during my time at Hogwarts, said Lupin reminiscently. There were a few months in my first year when you couldn't move for being hoisted into the air by your ankle. My dad used it, said Harry. I saw him in the Pensive. He used it on Snape. He tried to sound casual, as though this was a throwaway comment of no real importance, but he was not sure he had achieved the right effect. Lupin's smile was a little too understanding. Yes, he said, but he wasn't the only one. As I say, it was a very popular... you know how these spells come and go. But it sounds like it was invented while you were at school, Harry persisted. Not necessarily, said Lupin. Jinxes go in and out of fashion like everything else. He looked into Harry's face and then said quietly, James was a pure blood, Harry. I promise you. He never asked us to call him Prince. Abandoning pretense, Harry said, and it wasn't Sirius or you? Definitely not. No. Harry stared into the fire. I just thought, well, he's helped me a lot in potions class, the Prince has. How old is the book, Harry? I don't know, I never checked. Well, perhaps that will give some clue as to when the Prince was at Hogwarts, said Lupin. Shortly after this, Fleur decided to imitate Celestina's singing, a cauldron full of hot, strong love, which was taken by everyone, once they had glimpsed Mrs. Weasley's expression, to be a cue to go to bed. Harry and Ron climbed all the way up to Ron's attic bedroom, where a camp bed had been laid and added for Harry. Drumard! Hello! Is that Drew Mind, but in a different account, or is this someone new? Any which way, hello and welcome in. Spotted Rusty Skull, love your stories and historical reflection. Very good to have you, Spotted. I'm so glad that you've joined us for Storytime tonight. And for everyone who is new, welcome in, if you've never been in before. I am Castle, this is my tavern, and here we talk about myth and lore and tales of yore, and every now and again, I read you all bedtime stories. If this is your first time here and you've marked us on your map, that's very good, because this is a tavern at the end of the world, where all things eventually come to rest. And if you leave here taking a story with you, you are carrying it as a lantern out into the world. And any which way, grab your seats, fill your glasses, because it is right now bedtime stories. Yay, my computer is working again. I do believe the goblins moved in. My phone won't fully charge, computer acting up. But my new chair with the footrest arrived today and is now in one piece, so very helpful. Good news. Hello, once again, everything's a bit delayed for... No, I was reading back into the comments, so you are you fresh to the tavern, my friend, or have you been here before? We have another patron who goes by Drew Mind, so I didn't know if that's you, but if not, hello and welcome in, Dumut. It's very good to have you, and I'm very glad that you've joined us tonight. Fresh out of the swamp, then. So I'm very glad that you could join us then. As I've said, I'm Castle, and this is my tavern. The tavern patrons will keep you enjoyed. If you see someone with a sword next to their name, they are one of the barkeeps, and they can answer any questions that you might have. We have, let's see, we are on 287. We have about 10 pages left in this chapter before I take my break. And then we will be back for probably another chapter, I would presume. So we've still got quite a bit of time left in our story time for tonight. Big Ed, hello my friend, welcome, welcome, so very glad you could join us. Settle in, grab your seat. We're about halfway through this chapter, so get your butterbeer. Your cell is being a bit weird? Well, tell it to stop. Tell it to be normal. Or as normal as can be. Oh no, where was I? Ron fell asleep almost immediately, but Harry delved into his trunk and pulled out his copy of Advanced Potion Making, before getting into bed. There he turned the pages, searching until he finally found the front of the book, the date it had been published. It was nearly 50 years old. Neither his father nor his father's friends had been at Hogwarts 50 years ago. Feeling disappointed, Harry threw the book back into his trunk and turned off the lamp, and rolled over, thinking of werewolves and Snape, Stan Shunpike and the Half-Blood Prince, and finally falling into an uneasy sleep full of creeping shadows and cries of bitten children. She's got to be joking. Harry woke with a start to find a bulging stocking lying over the end of his bed. He put on his glasses and looked around. The tiny window was almost completely obscured with snow, and in front of it, Ron was sitting bolt upright in bed and examining what appeared to be a thick gold chain. "What's that?" said Harry. "It's from Lavender," said Ron, sounding revolted. "She can't honestly think I'd wear." Harry looked more closely and let out a stout laughter. Dangling from the chain were large letters with the words, "My sweetheart." "Nice," he said. "Classy. You should definitely wear it in front of Fred and George." "If you tell them," said Ron, shoving the necklace out of sight under his pillow, I'll stutter at me," said Harry, grinning. "Come on, would I?" "How could she think I'd like something like that, though?" Ron demanded, of thin air, looking rather shocked. "Well, think back," said Harry. "Have you ever let it slip that you'd like to go out in public with the words, 'My sweetheart,' around your neck?" "Well, we don't really talk much," said Ron. "It's mainly snogging," said Harry. "Well, yeah," said Ron. He hesitated for a moment and then said, "Is Hermione really going out with McLaggen?" "I don't know," said Harry. "They were at Slughorn's party together, but I don't think it went that well." Ron looked slightly more cheerful as he delved deeper into his stocking. Harry's presents included a sweater with a large golden snitch worked into the front, hand-knitted by Mrs. Weasley, a large box of Weasley's Wizard Wheezes products from the twins, and a slightly damp, mouldy-smelling package that came labeled, reading, "To Master from Creature." Harry stared at it. "Do you reckon it's safe to open?" he asked. "Can't be anything dangerous. All our mail's being searched at the Ministry," replied Harry, though he was eyeing the parcel suspiciously. "I didn't even think of giving Creature anything. Do people usually give their house elves Christmas presents?" asked Harry, prodding the parcel cautiously. "Hermione would," said Ron. "But let's wait and see what it is before you start feeling guilty." A moment later, Harry let out a loud yell and leapt out of his camp bed. The package contained a large number of maggots. "Nice," said Ron, roaring with laughter. "Very thoughtful." "I'd rather have them than that necklace," said Harry, which sobered Ron up at once. Everybody was wearing new sweaters when they all sat down for Christmas lunch. Everyone except Fleur, on whom it appeared Mrs. Weasley had not wanted to waste one, and Mrs. Weasley herself, who was sporting a brand new midnight blue witch's hat, glittering with what looked like tiny star-like diamonds, and a spectacular golden necklace.
Friend George gave them to me. Aren't they beautiful?
Well, we find we appreciate you more and more, Mum, now that we're washing our own socks, said George, waving an airy hand. Parsnips, Remus?
Harry, you've got a maggot in your hair,
said Ginny cheerfully, leaning across the table to pick it out. Harry felt goosebumps erupt up his neck that had nothing to do with the maggot.
Oh, how horrible,
said Fleur with an affected little shudder.
Yes,
yeah, isn't it? Said Ron. Gravy, Fleur. And in his eagerness to help her, he knocked the gravy boat flying. Bill waved his wand, and the gravy soared up into the air and returned meekly to the boat.
You are as bad as that Tonks. As bad as that Tonks,
said Fleur to Ron, when she had finished kissing Bill in thanks.
She is always knocking. I invited dear Tonks to come along today,
said Mrs. Weasley, setting down the carrots with an unnecessary force and glaring at Fleur.
But she wouldn't come. Have you spoken to her lately, Remus?
No, I haven't been in contact with anybody very much, said Lupin. But Tonks has got her own family to go to, hasn't she?
Said
Mrs. Weasley.
Maybe. I've got the impression she is planning to spend Christmas alone, actually.
She gave Lupin an annoyed look, as though it was all his fault she was getting Fleur for a daughter-in-law instead of Tonks. But Harry, glancing across at Fleur, who was now feeding Bill bits of turkey off her own fork, thought that Mrs. Weasley was fighting a long-lost battle. He was, however, reminded of a question he had with regard to Tonks, and who better to ask than Lupin, the man who knew all about Patronuses. Oh, we got folks coming in. Badger Raid. Arthur Christie raiding in. Arthur Christie, Macy Paul, welcome in, my friends. Let me give you a toot on the raid horn real quick. We've got raiders coming in on Twitch, friends, so if you've never been here for when we get raided on Twitch, we toot the raid horn because we've been raided and we want to welcome in the raiders with drinks and so they don't steal everything on their way out. So here we go. 3, 2, 1. Welcome, Raiders. So very glad to have you. Settle in, settle in. We are in the midst of story time. I am Castle. This is my tavern, and here we talk about myth and lore and tales of yore. And every now and again, I read you all a bedtime story. Tonight, we are in the midst of Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince. And on Tuesdays, I read Silverthorn by Raymond E. Feist. And then the lady of the tavern gives us her rendition of Son of Shadows by Juliet Marie. Wait, is that correct? Juliet Marie. I just want to make sure I was getting it right. Oh, Christy, I'm very glad that you enjoy. What were you all up to this evening? We're going to take a quick break to welcome in the Raiders, everyone. What were you all up to this fine evening? I presume either reading or writing. It says author Christy, so I presume that you have either written or in the process of writing a book. Val, thank you for the roses over on TikTok. Very kind of you. Tips to the Tavern Keeper, of course, always appreciated. Unknown Soul. Oh, very good then. Yes. Unknown Soul. I do remember Unknown Soul. And we did some writing and live reading. Excellent. And so, remind me if you did, in fact, are you in the process of writing a book or did you ever get published? Or are you currently published, I guess would be a more appropriate question. Leo Go, thank you for the cheers. Appreciate you for that. Macy Paul, thank you for the follow. You marked the tavern on your map, so you should be able to find your way back the next time you seek a story. This is a tavern at the end of the world where all stories eventually come to rest. So whenever you seek a story, the doors will appear for you, and you shall find one. I have one published, The Heiress of Soul. I have my second coming out on July 27th, Delivered with love. Well, excellent. One of the barkeeps, can we get a shout out for Arthur Christie then? I was reading my third novel, Mr. Brightside. It's in editing stages. Absolutely exceptional. Go ahead and give a shout out for Arthur Christie for me. And then, Arthur Christie, if you want to message a link to your book to one of the barkeeps, that's anyone with a sword, then you already did? Okay, thank you. I can't see them from where I am, so I appreciate you, love. Thank you kindly. And yes, Christy, if you want to message a link to your book to one of the... You can message it to the lead barkeep there, Destiny, also known as Capitan Hoodie. She'll post it in the chat for everyone. Thank you kindly. She was very quick today. I didn't even get a chance to be bossy. Well, for all of the new folk who've dropped in, settle in, grab your seat, fill your drink. We've got about 6 pages left in this chapter before my break, and then I'll pop up for about 5 minutes, come back, we'll do some songs, and then another chapter before we end up for the night. I just happen to have fast fingers at the moment. I'm very glad you think so, Macy. It's good to have you. All right, let us continue. Tonks's Patronus has changed forms, he told him. Snape said so anyway. I didn't know that could happen. Why would your Patronus change? Lupin took his time chewing his turkey and swallowing before saying slowly, Sometimes. Great shock. An emotional upheaval. It looked big and it had 4 legs, said Harry, struck by the sudden thought of lowering his voice. Hey, it couldn't be.
Arthur,
said Mrs. Weasley suddenly. She had risen from her chair, her hand pressed over her heart, and she was staring at the kitchen window.
Arthur, it's Percy.
What? Mr. Weasley looked around. Everybody looked quickly at the window. Ginny stood up for a better look, and there, sure enough, was Percy Weasley, striding across a snowy yard, his horn-rimmed glasses glinting in the sunlight. He was not, however, alone.
Arthur, he's with the minister.
And sure enough, the man Harry had seen in the Daily Prophet was following along in Percy's wake, limping slightly, his mane of greying hair and his black cloak flecked with snow. Before any of them could say anything, before Mr. and Mrs. Weasley could do more than exchange stunned looks, the back door opened and there stood Percy. There was a moment of painful silence, and then Percy said, rather stiffly, Merry Christmas, Mother.
Oh, Percy,
said Mrs. Weasley. She threw herself into his arms. Rufus Grimgore paused at the doorway, leaning on his walking stick, and smiling as he observed this affecting scene. You forgive the intrusion, he said, when Mrs. Weasley looked around at him, beaming and wiping her eyes. Percy and I were in the vicinity, working, you know, and he couldn't resist dropping in and seeing you all. But Percy showed no sign of wanting to greet any of the rest of his family. He stood poker straight and looking awkward, and stared over everybody else's heads. Mr. Weasley, Fred, George, and the others were all observing him stony-faced.
Please, come in. Sit down, Minister,
fluttered Mrs. Weasley, straightening her hat.
Have a little Perky, or some pudding, I mean.
No, my dear Molly, said Scrimgeour. Harry guessed that he had checked her name with Percy before they entered the house. I don't want to intrude. Wouldn't be here at all if Percy hadn't wanted to see you all so badly.
Oh, Percy,
said Mrs. Weasley tearfully, reaching up to kiss him. We've only looked in for 5 minutes, so I'll have a stroll around the yard while you catch up with Percy. No, I assure you, I don't want to butt in. Well, if anybody cared to show me your charming garden, Ah, that young man's finished. Why doesn't he take a stroll with me? The atmosphere around the table changed perceptibly. Everyone looked from Scrimgeour to Harry. Nobody seemed to find Scrimgeour's pretense that he did not know Harry's name convincing, or find it natural that he should be chosen to accompany the minister around the garden when Ginny, Fleur, and George also had clean plates. Yeah, all right, said Harry into the silence. He was not fooled, for all Scrimgeour's talk that they had just been in the area, that Percy wanted to look up his family. This must be the real reason that they had come, so that Scrimgeour could speak to Harry alone. It's fine, he said quietly as he passed Lupin, who had half risen from his chair. Fine, he added, as Mr. Weasley opened his mouth to speak. Wonderful, said Scrimgeour, standing back to let Harry pass through the door ahead of him. Let's take a turn around the garden, and Percy, I'll be off. Carry on, everyone. Harry walked across the yard towards the Weasleys' overgrown, snow-covered garden, Scrimgeour limping slightly at his side. He had, Harry knew, been head of the Order office. He looked tough and battle-scarred, and very different from the portly Fudge in his bowler hat. Charming, said Scrimgeour, stopping at the garden fence, and looking over the snowy lawn at the indistinguishable plants. Charming! Harry said nothing. He could tell that Scrimgeour was watching him. Wanted to meet you for a very long time, said Scrimgeour after a few moments. Did you know that? No, said Harry truthfully. Oh, yes, for a very long time. Dumbledore has been very protective of you, said Scrimgeour. Naturally, of course, natural. After what you've been through, everybody, and especially what happened at the ministry. He waited for Harry to say something, but Harry did not oblige, so he went on. I've been hoping for an occasion to talk to you ever since I gained office, but Dumbledore has, most understandably, as I say, prevented this. Still, Harry said nothing, waiting. The rumours that have flown around, said Scrimgeour. Of course, we both know how these stories get distorted. All these whispers of a prophecy of you being the chosen one. They were getting near it now, Harry thought. The reason Scrimgeour was here. I assume that Dumbledore has discussed these matters with you? Harry deliberated, wondering whether he ought to lie or not. He looked at the little gnome prints all around the flower beds, and the scuffed-up patch that marked the spot where Fred had caught the gnome wearing the tutu at the top of the Christmas tree. Finally, he decided on the truth, or a bit of it. Yeah, we've discussed it. Have you? Said Scrimgeour. Harry could see out of the corner of his eye Scrimgeour was squinting at him. So he pretended to be very interested in a gnome that had just poked his head out from underneath a frozen rhododendron. What has Dumbledore told you, Harry? Sorry, but that's between us, said Harry. He kept his voice as pleasant as he could, and Scrimgeour's tone, too, was light and friendly as he said, Oh, of course. If it's a question of confidences, I wouldn't want you to divulge. No. And in any case, doesn't really matter whether you are the chosen one or not. Harry had to mull that one over for a few seconds before responding. I don't really know what you mean, Minister. Well, of course. To you it would matter enormously, said Scrimgeour with a laugh. But to the wizarding community at large, it's all perception, isn't it? It's what people believe that's important. Harry said nothing. He thought he saw dimly where they were heading, but he was not going to help Scrimgeour get there. The gnome under the rhododendron was now digging for worms at its roots, and Harry kept his eyes fixed upon it. People believe that you are the chosen one, you see, said Scrimgeour. They think you're quite the hero, which, of course, you are, Harry, chosen or not. How many times have you faced he who must not be named now? Well, anyway, he pressed on without waiting for a reply. The point is, you're a symbol of hope for many, Harry. The idea that there is somebody out there who might be able It might even be destined to destroy he who must not be named. But naturally it gives people a lift. And I can't help but feel that once you realize this, you might consider it, well, almost a duty to stand alongside the ministry and give everyone a boost. Also, Saul, Christy, if you need to head out, you are more than welcome to off. I appreciate the raid. And for anyone who needs to get off to bed, you're more than welcome to head out and do so. Other Christy, thank you for the bits. This is deeply appreciated. My screen is a little bit weird right now, so I can't see everything that comes in, but thank you for the bits. Tips to the tavern keeper are always appreciated. I will need to go off in a couple of minutes. Thank you for the stream. But the bedtime stories are so good. I'm glad you're enjoying yourself, Macy. But yes, Christy, head to bed. It was wonderful to have you. So very glad that you dropped in. It's good to see you, and congratulations on your book coming out in exactly 10 days. I felt so obligated to stay with the raid the other day, I ended up going on 3. You gotta be careful getting too deep into the raid culture on Twitch, Milu. It can take you to places far, far away. The gnome had just managed to get a hold of a worm and was now tugging very hard on it, trying to get it out of the frozen ground. Harry was silent so long that Scrimgeour said, looking from Harry to the gnome, "Funny little chaps, aren't they? But what say you, Harry?" "I don't exactly understand what you want," said Harry slowly. "Stand alongside the ministry. What does that mean?" "Oh, well, nothing at all onerous, I assure you," said Scrimgeour. "If you were to be seen popping in and out of the ministry from time to time, for instance, that would give the right impression. And of course, while you were there, you would have ample opportunity to speak to Gawain Roberts, my successor as head of the Aura office. The Lord Umbridge has told me that you cherish an ambition to become an Aura. Well, that could be arranged very easily." Harry felt anger bubbling in the pit of his stomach. So, Dolores Umbridge was still at the ministry, was she? "So basically," he said, as though he wanted to clarify a few points. "Oh, wait, this is Harry. So basically," he said, as though he wanted to clarify a few points, "you'd like to give the impression that I'm working for the ministry." "It would give everyone a lift to think you were more involved, Harry," said Scrimgeour, sounding relieved that Harry had cottoned on so quickly. "Chosen one, you know. It's all about giving people hope, the feeling that exciting things are happening." "But if I keep running in and out of the ministry," said Harry, still endeavouring to keep his voice friendly, "won't that seem as though I approve of what the ministry's up to?" "Well," said Scrimgeour, frowning slightly. "Well, yes, that's partly why we'd like..." "No, I don't think that'll work," said Harry pleasantly. "You see, I don't like some of the things the ministry's doing. Locking up Stan Shunpike, for instance." Scrimgeour did not speak for a moment, but his expression hardened instantly. "I would not expect you to understand," he said, and he was not as successful as keeping anger out of his voice as Harry had been. "These are dangerous times, and certain measures need to be taken. You're a 16-year-old. "Dumbledore's a lot older than 16, and he doesn't think Stan should be in Azkaban either," said Harry. "You're making Stan a scapegoat, just like you want to make me a mascot." They looked at each other long and hard. Finally, Scrimgeour said, with no pretense at warmth, "I see. You prefer, like a hero, to disassociate yourself with the ministry." "I don't want to be used," said Harry. "Some would say it's your duty to be used by the ministry." "Yeah, and others might say it's your duty to check the people are really Death Eaters before you chuck them in prison," said Harry, his temper rising now. You're doing what Barty Crouch did. You never get it right. You people, do you? Either you got Fudge pretending everything's lovely while people are being murdered right under his nose, or we've got you chucking the wrong people in jail just to pretend you've got the chosen one working for you. So you're not the chosen one, said Scrimgeour. Thought you said it didn't matter either way, said Harry with a bitter laugh. Not to you, anyway. I shouldn't have said that, said Scrimgeour quickly. It was tactless. No, it was honest, said Harry. One of the only honest things you've said to me. You don't care whether I live or die, but you do care that I help you convince everyone you're winning the war against Voldemort. I haven't forgotten, Minister. He raised his right fist, there, shining white and gold on the back of his hand, with the scars which Dolores Umbridge had forced him to carve into his own flesh. I must not tell lies. I don't remember you rushing to my defense when I was trying to tell everyone Voldemort was back. The Ministry was so keen to be pals last year. They stood there in silence as the icy ground beneath their feet. The gnome had finally managed to extricate the worm and was now sucking on it happily, leaning against the bottommost branch of the rhododendron bush. What is Dumbledore up to? Said Scrimgeour brusquely. Where does he go when he's absent from Hogwarts? No idea, said Harry. And you wouldn't tell me if you knew, said Scrimgeour. Would you? No, I wouldn't, said Harry. Well then, I shall have to see whether I can find out by other means. You can try, said Harry indifferently. But you seem cleverer than Fudge, so I'd have thought you'd have learned from his mistakes. He tried interfering at Hogwarts. You might have noticed he's not minister anymore. But Dumbledore's still headmaster. I'd leave Dumbledore alone if I were you. There was a long pause. Well, it is clear to me that he's done a very good job on you, said Scrimgeour with his eyes cold and hard between his wire-rimmed glasses. Dumbledore's man through and through, aren't you, Potter? Yeah, I am, said Harry. Glad we straightened that out. And turning his back on the Minister of Magic, he strolled back towards the house. And so ends Chapter 16. What a legendary little back and forth between Harry and Scrimgeour there. Absolutely wonderful. Well, I ended up getting bounced to someone's raid who helped me before, a friend of a friend. Ah, very good. Jazz, thank you for the subscription over on TikTok. I'm very glad that you dropped in. Hello, hello. Oh, and there was a bunch of other tips that came in that I wasn't paying attention to. Megan, thank you for all of the roses. And Raven Writer, thank you for the roses. Megan, thank you for, what was that, 100, 200, no, it's 128? Megan, thank you for 128 roses over on TikTok. Tips to the Tavern Keeper, always appreciated. Thank you kindly. And Raven Rider, thank you for the roses. And Jazz, thank you for the subscription over on YouTube. Very kind of you. Tips to the Tavern Keeper are deeply appreciated, my friends. I did let the kids roast marshmallows over candles today, though. Well, that's fun. Ashley, love, hello. I'm glad that you could make it in. Worked late tonight. That's quite all right. I'm glad you made it in anyways. That's one of those parts that would have been nice to have been in the movies. I 100% agree, Frost. There are some of the better instances, some of the better written instances absolutely did not make it into the films, and that was tragic. All right, my friends, I'm going to pop up for a quick break. Let's see how long the next chapter is real quick. We have page 297, so... we have exactly 20 pages in the next chapter. So we should be able to do that in 90 minutes, I think. Should be able to manage that as long as I don't get off on too many rants and rambles. So let me put you all on waiting, and then I will be right back. And we will get back into, we'll do a couple of songs. I saw Black Velvet Band was requested. So let's get one more song, and then we'll do 2 songs on the break, and then we'll get back into the next chapter. And yeah, yes, indeed, Beard. I'll run some ads while I'm up. I'm going to bounce. Lovely to meet you all for the stories. Macy, it was absolutely wonderful to have you. I'm glad that you stopped in. Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful to see you, and I'm so glad that you enjoyed your time here with us. We do story time on Sunday, Tuesday, and Thursday. And then on Monday and Wednesday, you can come in for something a little bit more casual with games over on Twitch. So, uh, everyone, I will be right back. Let me put you on break, and then we will return here shortly.
Not again, bro. Not again.
All right, my friends, we have returned. Also, it's 2 years before the 450, and it was our farm truck, so needless to say, it's seen better days. Val, thank you for the roses. Tips to the tavern keeper, always appreciated. All right, let's see. Bear's got me signed up here. Matty has requested Tale of the Shadow. Milu requested Black Velvet Van. Hoist Up the Thing. Petra recommended Valhalla Calling. Let's say Valhalla Calling for last, because my voice is feeling a bit worn out. But we can do Black Velvet Band, and of course, Esther, I see you have requested Misty Mountain. Let's save Misty Mountain for the end as well. And I guess we'll do Hoist Up the Thing and Black, or let's do it because both Black Velvet Band and Hoist Up the Thing were from Milu. So let's do Tale of the Shadow and Black Velvet Band. How does that sound, friends? Ugh. Right, I did mute the chat box. I don't know how I did that. Fair? Alright. Sounds good to me. Let's do it. Let's start with Hoist Up the Thing, or Tale of the Shadow. Tale of the Shadow I still haven't quite gotten completely together yet, but I know it basically. Oh, Hoist Up the Thing was you, Bear? Okay. I didn't see that. Oh, me, Hoist Up the Thing. Okay, I didn't see the me. That was my fault, Bear. That was my fault. Let's forget it. Screw it. We'll do Tale of the Shadow, Hoist Up the Thing, and Black Velvet Band for the middle. And then we'll save the rest for the end. Alright, friends, if you know the words, you ought to join in and sing merry with me. If you don't know the words, you're welcome to look them up and sing them poorly, as I do. I set upon the sea to search for phantom sails of tales my mom told me. A ghostly galleon filled with gold she sails alone. No crew, no captain's guiding hand can tame the one the sailors call the Shadow. Unless you've looked into Got No Beard. I have, but I'm not confident in it yet, Bear, so hopefully by next week I'll have it for you. Sun and horizon met, though I weighed the anchor, hoisted sails, my course was set. My cutthroat crew conspiring with the stars our guide. They point the way through perils fraught and lead us to the one they call the Shadow. None can tame the one the sailors call the Shadow. Lean left, hard right, hold tightly to her helm, she'll try to drown you just for spite. Heave-ho, till first light, she'll give a fight to all who try to claim the Shadow. None can tame the one the sailors call the Shadow. A mighty tempest grew, the banshee cried, turn back, but our resolve was true. We pointed bow ahead and shouted, we'll break through. The jaws of hell can't hold us back, there's nothing that can keep us from the Shadow. The winds blew stronger still, the ocean raged against us, tried to break our will. The sirens in the water thirsty for the kill, our vessel railing to and fro, to bear us to the one they call the Shadow. None can tame the one the sailors call the Shadow. Lean left, hard right, hold tightly to her helm, she'll try to drown you just for spite. Heave-ho, till first light, she'll give a fight to all who try to claim the Shadow. None can tame the one the sailors call the Shadow. As we approached her shell, the skies went silent, seas went calm as if by spell. No signs of fight or flight were in her. All was well, until I tried to take her helm. Her rigging came alive, she hung my crew before me. She stole my sight and cursed me, captain of the shadow. She took my eyes and cursed me, captain of the shadow. Lean left, hard right, steer clear of her. I fear she'll try to eat your soul. She'll take your life. Heave ho, till first light. She'll claim the souls of all who tried to tame the shadow. None can tame the one the sailors call the shadow. None can tame the one the sailors call the shadow. Thank you for the song, my friends. Absolutely lovely. Let's also go ahead and get Hoist Up the Thing for Bear. This one is funny. I actually enjoy this one quite a bit. Val, Ashley, thank you for the applause. It's appreciated. So this is about a guy who becomes a captain of a ship with no qualifications, and he just sort of lies his way through it. And it goes about as well as you would expect. Fresh out of college with grades straight from hell, I browse for a trade at which I could excel. An ad for a ship in need of some manning, men sails in purpose but lacking a captain. What luck, says I, to find such good fortune. A few white lies later I ran down the pier, bought me a coat and a cutlass or two. I jumped on the deck and I yelled at the crew. Hoist up the thing, batten down the what's it. What's that thing spinning? Somebody should stop it. Turn hard to port. That's not port, now I've got it. Trust me, I'm in control. Well, I can't sing the shanties, it has to be said, and all of that grog goes straight to me head. Whale meat is gross, and I miss a girl's laugh. 5 weeks at sea, and even Dave seems a catch. Hoist up the thing, batten down the what's it. What's that thing spinning? Somebody should stop it. Turn hard to port. That's not port, now I've got it. Trust me, I'm in control. We've hit icy waters, no land to be seen. The food's getting low and the beer has gone green. There's murmurs of discontent under the deck. If I don't act fast, it could be my neck. So pull up the charts in those weird gold machines. I see what it says, but no clue what it means. Just pull on some levers and yank on some chains. Feign a bad back until we've landed again. Hoist up the thing, batten down the what's it. What's that thing spinning? Somebody should stop it. Turn hard to port. That's not port, now I've got it. Trust me, I'm in control. Hoist up the thing, batten down the what's it. What's that thing spinning? Somebody should stop it. Turn hard to port. That's not port, now I've got it. Trust me, I'm in control. Hoist up the thing, batten down the what's it. What's that thing spinning? Somebody should stop it. Turn hard to port. This is jail, now I've got it. Trust me, I'm in control. Ah, help! Trust me, I'm in control. That's how the song actually ends. It's very funny. Turns out him getting arrested because he's not really a captain. Black Knight, I'm glad you enjoyed. Val, thank you for the roses. Deeply appreciated. Alright, last but certainly not least is an old favorite. The Black Velvet Band. Raise your glasses, friends, to a classic ballad. I think probably made most famous by the Dubliners. You're welcome, Milu. I hope you're all enjoying singing along. In a neat little town they call Belfast, apprentice to trade I was bound, and many an hour sweet happiness have I spent in this neat little town? A sad misfortune came over me, which caused me to stray from the land. Far away from my friends and relations, betrayed by the Black Velvet Band. Her eyes, they shone like diamonds. I thought her the queen of the land, and her hair it hung over her shoulder, tied up with a black velvet band. I took a stroll down Broadway, meaning not long for to stay, when who should I meet but this pretty fair maid came a-traipsing along the highway. She was both fair and handsome, her neck it was just like a swan's, and her hair it hung over her shoulder, tied up with a black velvet band. Her eyes they shone like diamonds. I thought her the queen of the land, and her hair it hung over her shoulders, tied up with a black velvet band. I took a stroll with this pretty fair maid, and a gentleman passing us by. Well, I knew she meant the undoing of him by the look in her roguish black eye. A gold watch she took from his pocket, and slipped it right into my hand. And the very first thing that I said was, "Bad cess to the black velvet band." Her eyes they shone like diamonds. I thought her the queen of the land, and her hair it hung over her shoulders, tied up with a black velvet band. Before the judge and the jury, the next morning I had to appear. And the judge he says to me, "Young man, your case is proven quite clear. We'll give you 7 years penal servitude to be spent down in Van Diemen's Land, far away from your friends and companions, betrayed by the Black Velvet Band." Her eyes they shone like diamonds. I thought her the queen of the land, and her hair it hung over her shoulders, tied up with a black velvet band. Thank you for the songs, my friends. Absolutely lovely. There will be more at the end. But for now,
Just play second.
we return to Harry Potter. Black Knight, I'm glad you enjoyed. Ashley, thank you for the applause. It's appreciated.
That man is beyond delusional.
I might just be here. Also, fair warning, I had to put a lot of random not in my Pantheon's documents, so apologies if it's longer than expected. Notes in my pen. That's alright, Matty, that's alright. 10 out of 10. Thank you, Black Knight. I appreciate you. Alright. Let us return to the realm of Harry Potter. Chapter 17. A Sluggish Memory. Late in the afternoon, a few days after New Year, Harry, Ron, and Ginny lined up beside the kitchen fire to return to Hogwarts. The Ministry had arranged this one-off connection to the Floon network to return students quickly and safely to school. Only Mrs. Weasley was there to say goodbye, as Mr. Weasley, Fred, George, Bill, and Fleur were all at work. Mrs. Weasley dissolved into tears at the moment of parting. Admittedly, it took very little to set her off lately. She had been crying on and off ever since Percy had stormed from the house on Christmas Day, with his glasses splattered with mashed parsnip, for which Fred, George, and Ginny all claimed credit. "Don't cry, Mum," said Ginny, patting her on the back as Mrs. Weasley sobbed into her shoulder. "It's okay." "Yeah, don't worry about us," said Ron, permitting his mother to plant a very wet kiss on his cheek. "Or about Percy. He's such a prat. It's not really a loss, is it?" Mrs. Weasley sobbed harder than ever as she unfolded Harry in her arms. "Promise me you won't. You'll look after yourself. Stay out of trouble." "I always do, Mrs. Weasley," said Harry. "I like a quiet life, you know." "You know me." She gave a watery chuckle and stood back. "Be good then, all of you." Harry stepped into the emerald fire and shouted, "Hogwarts!" He had one last fleeting view of the Weasleys' kitchen and Mrs. Weasley's tearful face before the flames engulfed him, spinning very fast. He caught blurred glimpses of other wizarding rooms, which were wiped out of sight before he could get a proper look. Then he was slowing down and finally stopped squarely in the fireplace of Professor McGonagall's office. She barely glanced up from her work as he clambered over the grate. "Evening, Potter. Try not to get too much ash on the carpet." "No, Professor." Harry straightened his glasses and flattened his hair as Ron came spinning into view. When Ginny had arrived, the three of them trooped out of McGonagall's office and off towards Gryffindor Tower. Harry glanced out of the corridor windows as they passed. The sun was already sinking over the grounds, carpeted in deeper snow than had ever lain over the Burrow garden. In the distance, he could see Hagrid feeding Buckbeak in front of his cabin. "Bubbles," said Ron confidently as they reached the fat lady, who was looking rather paler than usual and winced at his loud voice. "No," she said. "What do you mean, no?" "There's a new password," she said. "Please don't shout." "But we've
It's gonna come back.
been away. How are we supposed to?"
Literally.
"Hurry, Jenny." Hermione was hurrying towards them, very pink-faced, wearing a cloak, hat, and gloves. "I got back a couple of hours ago. I've just been down to visit Hagrid and Weatherwings," she said breathlessly. "Did you have a good Christmas?"
Help you?
"Yeah," said Ron at once.
Help him?
"Pretty eventful. Rufus Scrim."
I don't want to, bro.
"I've got something for you, Harry," said Hermione, neither looking at Ron nor giving any sign that she had heard him. "Oh, hang on. Password. Abstinence." "Precisely," said the fat lady in a feeble voice, and swung forward to reveal the portrait hole.
I would be the happiest man ever born.
"What's up with her?" said Harry. "Overindulged over Christmas, apparently,"
No.
said Hermione, rolling her eyes as she led the way into the packed common room.
Straight off the friends list. I won't need to-
She and her friend Violet drank their way through all the wine in that picture of the drunk monks down in the charms corridor. Anyway, she rummaged into her pockets for a moment and she pulled out a scroll of parchment with Dumbledore's writing on it. "Great," said Harry, unrolling it at once to discover that his next lesson with Dumbledore was scheduled for the following night. "I've got loads to tell him. And you. Let's sit down." But at that moment there was a loud squeal of "One," and Lavender Brown came hurtling out of nowhere and flung herself into Ron's arms. Several onlookers sniggered. Hermione gave a tinkling laugh and said, "There's a table over there. Coming, Ginny." "No, thanks. I said I'd meet Dean," said Ginny, though Harry could not help noticing that she did not sound very enthusiastic. Leaving Ron and Lavender locked in a kind of vertical wrestling match, Harry led Hermione over to the spare table. So how was your Christmas? Oh, fine, she shrugged. Nothing special. How was it at Wanwan's? I'll tell you in a minute, said Harry. Look, Hermione, can't you? No, I can't, she asked flatly. So don't even ask. I thought, over Christmas. It was the fat lady who drank a vat of 500-year-old wine, Harry, not me. So what was this important news you wanted to tell me? She looked too fierce to argue with at the moment, so Harry dropped the subject of Ron and recounted all that he had overheard between Malfoy and Snape. When he had finished, Hermione sat in a thought for a moment and then said, Do you think he was pretending to offer to help so he could trick Malfoy into telling him what he's doing? Well, yes, said Hermione. Ron's dad and Lupin think so too, Harry said grudgingly. This definitely proves Malfoy's planning something, and you can't deny that. No, I can't, she answered slowly. And he's acting like he's acting on Voldemort's orders, just like I said. Did either of them actually mention Voldemort's name? Harry frowned, trying to remember. I'm not sure. Snape definitely said your master. And who else would that be? I don't know, said Hermione, biting her lip. Maybe his father? She stared across the room, apparently lost in thought, not even noticing Lavender tickling Ron. How's Lupin? Not great, said Harry. And he told her all about Lupin's mission among the werewolves and the difficulties he was facing. Have you ever heard of this Fenrir Greyback? Yes, I have, said Hermione, sounding startled. And so have you, Harry. When? History of Magic? You know full well I never listened. No, not History of Magic. Malfoy threatened Borgin with him, said Hermione. Back in Nocturne Alley, don't you remember? He told Borgin that Greyback was an old family friend, that he'd be checking up on Borgin's progress. Harry gaped at her. I forgot. But this proves Malfoy's a Death Eater. Else, could he be in contact with Greyback and telling him what to do? It's pretty suspicious, said Hermione. Unless... Oh, come on, said Harry in an exasperation. You can't get around this one. Well, there is the possibility it was an empty threat. You're unbelievable, you are, said Harry, shaking his head. We'll see who's right. You'll be eating your words, Hermione. Just like the Ministry. Oh yeah, I had a row with Rufus Scrimgeour as well. And the rest of the evening passed amicably, with both of them abusing the Minister of Magic for Hermione, like Ron, thought that after all the Ministry had put Harry through the previous year, they had a great deal of nerve asking him for help now. The new term started the next morning with a pleasant surprise for the 6th years. A large sign had been printed and pinned in the common room notice boards overnight. Apparition lessons. If you are 17 years of age or will turn 17 on or before the 31st of August next, you're eligible for a 12-week course of apparition lessons from a Ministry of Magic apparition instructor. Please sign below if you would like to participate. Cost 12 galleons. Harry and Ron joined the crowd that was jostling around the notice and taking it in turns to write their names at the bottom. Ron was just taking out his quill to sign after Hermione when Lavender crept up behind him, slipped her hands over his eyes, and trilled, Guess who, Won-Won? Harry turned to see Hermione stalking off. He caught up with her, having no wish to stay behind with Ron and Lavender, but to his surprise, Ron caught up with him only a little way beyond the portrait hole, his ears bright red and his expression disgruntled. Without a word, Hermione sped up to walk with Neville. So, apparition, said Ron, his tone making it perfectly clear that Harry was not to mention what had just happened. Should be a laugh, eh? I don't know, said Harry. Maybe it's better when you do it yourself. I didn't enjoy it much when Dumbledore took me along for the ride. I forgot you'd already done it. I'd better pass my test the first time, said Ron, looking anxious. Fred and George did. Charlie failed, though, didn't he? Yeah, but Charlie's bigger than me. Ron held his arms out from his body as though he was a gorilla. So Fred and George didn't go on about it too much. Not to his face, anyway. When can we take the actual test? Soon as we're 17. That's only March for me. Yeah, but you wouldn't be able to operate in here, not in the castle. Not the point, is it? Everyone would know I could operate if I wanted. Ron was not the only one to be excited about the prospect of operation. All that day there was much talk about the forthcoming lessons. A great deal of store was set aside by being able to vanish and reappear at will. How cool would it be? How cool will it be when we can just... Seamus clicked his fingers to indicate disappearance. Cousin Fergus does it just to annoy me. You wait till I can do it back. He'll never have another peaceful moment. Lost in visions of his happy prospect, he flicked his wand a little too enthusiastically, so that instead of producing a fountain of pure water that was the object of today's charms lesson, he let out a hose-like jet that ricocheted off the ceiling and knocked Professor Flitwick flat on his face. Harry's already operated, Ron told a slightly abashed Seamus, after Professor Flitwick had dried himself off with the waves of his wand and set Seamus's lines.
I'm a wizard, not a baboon brandishing a stick.
Someone took him. Side-along operation, you know. Whoa! Seamus whispered, and he, Dean, and Neville put their heads a little closer to hear what operation felt like. For the rest of the day, Harry was besieged with requests from other 6 years to describe the sensation of operation. All of them seemed awed rather than put off when he told them how uncomfortable it was. And he was still answering detailed questions at 10 to 8 that evening, when he was forced to lie and say that he needed to return a book to the library so as to escape in time for his lesson with Dumbledore. The lamps in Dumbledore's office were lit, the portraits of the previous headmasters were snoring gently in their frames, and the pensieve was already upon the desk once more. Dumbledore's hands lay on either side of it. The right one was blackened and burnt-looking as ever. It did not seem to have healed at all, and Harry wondered, for perhaps the 100th time, what had caused such a distinctive injury, but did not ask. Dumbledore had said that he would know eventually, and there was, in any case, another subject he wanted to discuss. But before Harry could say anything about Snape and Malfoy, Dumbledore spoke. I hear you met the Minister of Magic over Christmas? Yeah, said Harry. He's not very happy with me. No, sighed Dumbledore. He's not very happy with me either. We must try not to sink beneath our anguish, Harry, but battle on. Harry grinned. He wanted me to tell the wizarding community that the Ministry's doing a wonderful job. Dumbledore smiled. It was Fudge's idea originally, you know. During his last days in office, he was trying desperately to cling to his post. He sought a meeting with you, hoping that you would give him your support. After everything Fudge did last year, said Harry angrily, and Umbridge. I told Cornelius there was no chance of it, but the idea did not die when he left office. Within hours of Scrimgeour's appointment, we met and he demanded I arrange a meeting with you. So that's why you are you, Harry blurted out. It was in the Daily Prophet. Prophet is bound to report the truth occasionally, said Dumbledore, if only accidentally. Yes, that was why we argued. Well, it appears that Rubus found a way to corner you at last.
I know what he's drinking.
He accused me of being Dumbledore's man through and through. How very rude of him! I told him I was. Dumbledore opened his mouth to speak and then closed it again. Behind Harry, Fawkes the Phoenix let out a low, soft, musical cry. To Harry's intense embarrassment, he suddenly realized Dumbledore's bright blue eyes looked rather watery, and stared hastily at his own knees. When Dumbledore spoke, however, his voice was quite steady. I am very touched, Harry. Scrimgeour wanted to know where you go when you're not at Hogwarts, said Harry, still looking fixedly at his knees. Yes, he's very nosy about that, said Dumbledore, now sounding cheerful, and Harry thought it safe to look up again. He's even attempted to have me followed. Amusing, really. He sent Dawlish to tail me. It wasn't kind. I've already been forced to jinx Dawlish once. Did it again, with great regret. So they still don't know where you go, said Harry, hoping for more information on this intriguing subject. But Dumbledore merely smiled over the top of his half-moon spectacles. No, they don't. And the time is not quite right for you to know either. Now, I suggest we press on, unless there's anything else. There actually is, sir, said Harry. It's about Malfoy and Snape. Professor Snape, Harry. Feywitch, hello, good to see you, welcome in. So very glad that you could join us. Have I missed anyone else popping in? It doesn't seem so. It looks like we're fairly good all the way across the board. Let me just check to make sure everybody's been... Yeah, we're good there. We're good here. We're good there. All right, friends. Yes, sir. I overheard them during Professor Slughorn's party. Well, I followed them, actually. Dumbledore listened to Harry's story with an impassive face. When Harry had finished, he did not speak for a few moments and then said, Thank you for telling me this, Harry. But I suggest that you put it out of your mind. I do not think it is of great importance. Not of great importance, repeated Harry incredulously. Professor, did you understand? Yes, Harry. Blessed as I am with extraordinary brain power, I understood everything you told me, said Dumbledore a little sharply. I think you might even consider the possibility that I understood more than you did. Again, I am glad that you have confided in me, but let me reassure you that you have not told me anything that causes me disquiet. Harry sat in seething silence, glaring at Dumbledore. What was going on? Did this mean that Dumbledore had indeed ordered Snape to find out what Malfoy was doing? In which case, he had already heard everything Harry had just told him from Snape? Or was he really worried by what he had heard, but pretending not to be? So, sir, said Harry in what he hoped was a polite, calm voice. You definitely still trust. I have been tolerant enough to answer that question already, said Dumbledore. But he did not sound very tolerant anymore. My answer has not changed. I should think not, said a snide voice. Phineas Nigellus was evidently only pretending to be asleep. Dumbledore ignored him. And now, Harry, I must insist that we press on. I have more important things to discuss with you this evening. Harry sat there feeling mutinous. How would it be if he refused to permit the change of subject? If he insisted upon arguing the case against Malfoy? As though he had read Harry's mind, Dumbledore shook his head. Ah, Harry, how often this happens, even between the best of friends. Each of us believes that what he has to say is much more important than anything the other might have to contribute. I don't think what you have to say is unimportant, sir, said Harry stiffly. Well, you're quite right, because it is not, said Dumbledore briskly. I have 2 more memories to show you this evening, both obtained with enormous difficulty, and the second of them is, I think, the most important I have collected. Harry did not say anything to this. He still felt angry at the reception of his confidences had received, but could not see what was to be gained by arguing further. So, said Dumbledore in a ringing voice, we meet this evening to continue the tale of Tom Riddle, whom we left last, lesson poised on the threshold of his years at Hogwarts. You will remember how excited he was to hear that he was a wizard, that he refused my company on a trip to Diagon Alley, and that I, in turn, warned him against continued thievery when he arrived at the school. I don't hear any beeping, but I'm also not listening directly to the feed. Love, is there a beeping on stream? Feywitch and Bear said that they don't hear it. But it would be specifically on Twitch. Okay, is something hiding? You got a beep hiding someone in your house, Milu?
What were you sourcing the overlays from in OBS Studio?
OBS Studio, they were coming from the stream elements.
Okay, so if I do it in Streamlabs, it won't mess with the Streamlabs stuff, right?
Right, yeah, Streamlabs is completely different. So if you're in OBS Studio, there is a stream elements, like little thing on the actual stream elements. On OBS, there's a little thing where it says add element, and you can go into their shop and look for overlays there.
Well, if I want to do a custom one,
I'm not sure. You can. I think there's actually an option to upload them inside of that. Sonomi, hey Sonomi, hello. I don't hear anything. I hear bells from a collar. That is probably Boo running around, as Milo has long lost the bell from his collar. Tonks, I'm surprised you're still with us so late. I mean, I guess it's only 9:41, but... Well, at the start of the school year... Well, the start of the school year arrived, and with it came Tom Riddle, a quiet boy in his second-hand robes, who lined up with the other first years to be sorted. He was placed in Slytherin House, almost the moment the sorting hat touched his head, continued Dumbledore, waving his blackened hand towards the shelf. Over his head where the sorting hat sat, ancient and unmoving. How soon Riddle learned that the famous founder of the house could talk to snakes, I do not know. Perhaps that very evening, the knowledge can only have excited him and increased his sense of self-importance. However, if he was frightening or impressing fellow Slytherins with the displays of Parseltongue in the common room, no hint of it reached the staff. He showed no sign of outward arrogance or aggression at all. As an unusually talented and very good-looking orphan, he naturally drew attention and sympathy from the staff and almost from the moment of his arrival. He seemed polite, quaint, and thirsty for knowledge. Nearly all were most favourably impressed by him. Didn't you tell them, sir, what he'd been like when you met him at the orphanage? Asked Harry. No, I did not. Though he had shown no hint of remorse, it was possible that he felt sorry for how he had behaved before, and was resolved to turn over a fresh leaf. I chose to give him that chance. Dumbledore paused, looking inquiringly at Harry, who had opened his mouth to speak. Here again was Dumbledore's tendency to trust people in spite of overwhelming evidence that they did not deserve him. But then Harry remembered something. But you didn't really trust him, sir, did you? He told me. The riddle who came to me from that diary. Dumbledore never seemed to like me as much as the other teachers did. Let us just say that I did not take it for granted that he was trustworthy, said Dumbledore. I had, as I've already indicated, resolved to keep a close eye on him. And so I did. I cannot pretend that I was gleaming a great deal from my observations at first. He was very guarded with me. He felt, I am sure, that in thrill of discovering his true identity, he had told me a little too much. He was very careful never to reveal as much again, but he could not take back what he had let slip in his excitement, nor what Mrs. Cole had confided in me. However, He had the sense to never try and charm me, as he had charmed so many of my colleagues. As he moved up the school, he gathered about him a group of dedicated friends. I call them that, for want of a better term, although, as I have already indicated, Riddle undoubtedly felt no affection for them. This group had a kind of dark glamour within the castle. They were a motley collection, mixture of the weak seeking protection, the ambitious seeking some shared glory, and the thuggish gravitating towards a leader who could show them more refined forms of cruelty. In other words, they were the forerunners of the Death Eaters, and indeed some of them became the first Death Eaters after leaving Hogwarts. Rigidly controlled by Riddle, they were never detected in open wrongdoing, although their 7 years at Hogwarts were marked by a number of nasty incidents, to which they were never satisfactorily linked, the most serious of which was, of course, an opening of the Chamber of Secrets, which resulted in the death of a girl, as you know. Hagrid was wrongly accused of that crime. I have not been able to find many memories of Riddle at Hogwarts, said Dumbledore, placing a withered hand on the pensieve. Few who knew him then are prepared to talk about him. They are too terrified. What I know, I found out after he had left Hogwarts, after much painstaking effort, after tracing those few who could be tricked into speaking, after searching old records and questioning Muggle and Wizard witnesses alike. Those whom I had persuaded to talk told me that Riddle was obsessed with his parentage. This is understandable, of course. He had grown up in an orphanage, naturally wished to know how he came to be there. It seemed that he searched in vain for some trace of Tom Riddle Sr. on the shields in the trophy room, on the lists of prefects in the old school records, even in the books of the wizarding history. Finally, he was forced to accept that his father had never set foot in Hogwarts. I believe it was then that he dropped the name forever, assumed the identity of Lord Voldemort, and began his investigations into his previously despised mother's family. The woman whom, you will remember, he had thought could not be a witch if she had succumbed to the shameful human weakness of death. All he had to go on was the single name, Muffalo, which he knew from those who ran the orphanage had been his mother's father's name. Finally, after painstaking research through old books of wizarding families, he discovered the existence of Slytherin's surviving line. In the summer of his 16th year, he left the orphanage, to which he returned annually, and set off to find his gaunt relatives. And now, Harry, if you will stand. Dumbledore rose, and Harry saw that he was again holding a small crystal bottle filled with swirling pearly memory. I was very lucky to collect this, he said, as he poured the gleaming mass into the pensieve. As you will understand when we have experienced it, shall we? Harry stepped up to the stone basin and bowed obediently until his face sank through the surface of the memory. He felt the familiar sensation of falling through nothingness, and then landed upon the dirty stone floor in almost total darkness. I'm early or late to stream. I'm sorry I took a break. Back pain was never it for me. Much better now. Well, I'm glad you're feeling better, Sonomi. You are a bit late, but you made it in for the latter chapter, so I think that you're more or less right on time to get a story. Not on time for the whole story, but you're here for some story. Mom's already yelled at me to go to bed, but I want more Harry Potter. It's 11:43 p.m. in Tennessee. It is quite late. Let's see, I think we have 9 pages left, so that's probably about 20 minutes of reading left, Tonks. Right, where was I? It took him several seconds to recognize the place, by which time Dumbledore had landed beside him. The Gaunt's house was now more indescribably filthy than when Harry had ever seen. The ceiling was thick with cobwebs, the floor coated with grime. Mouldy and rotting food lay upon the table amidst a mass of crusted pots. The only light came from a single guttering candle placed at the feet of a man with hair and beard so overgrown Harry could see neither eyes nor mouth. He was slumped in an armchair by the fire, and Harry wondered for a moment whether he was dead. But then there came a loud knock on the door, and the man jerked awake, raising his wand in his right hand and a short knife in his left. The door creaked open, and there on the threshold, in an old-fashioned lamp, stood the boy Harry recognized at once. Tall, pale, dark-haired, and handsome, the teenage Voldemort. Voldemort's eyes moved slowly around the hovel and then found the man in the armchair. A few seconds they looked at each other, then the man staggered upright, the many empty bottles at his feet clattering and tinkling across the floor. "You!" he bellowed. "You!" He hurtled drunkenly at Riddle. Wand and knife hurtled off. "Stop!" Riddle spoke in parcel tongue. The man skidded into the table, sending mouldy pots crashing to the floor. He stared at Riddle. There was a long silence while they contemplated each other, and then the man broke it. "You speak it?" "Yes, I speak it," said Riddle. He moved forward into the room, allowing the door to swing shut behind him. Harry could not help but feel a resentful admiration for Voldemort's complete lack of fear. His face merely expressed disgust, or perhaps disappointment. "Where is Marvolo?" he asked. "Dead," said the other. "Died years ago, didn't he?" Riddle frowned. "Who are you, then?" "I'm Morphin, ain't I?" "Marvolo's son?" "Course I am, then." Morphin pushed the hair out of his dirty face. The better to see Riddle, and Harry saw that he wore Marvolo's black stone ring on his right hand. "I thought you was a muggle," whispered Morphin. "You look mighty like that muggle." "What muggle?" said Riddle sharply. "That muggle my sister took fancy to. That muggle what lives in the big house over the way," said Morphin, and he spat unexpectedly upon the floor between them. "You look right like him, Riddle. But he's older now, isn't he? He's older'n you, now I think on it." Morphin looked slightly dazed and swayed a little. He clutched the edge of the table for support. "He come back, see," he added stupidly. Voldemort was gazing at Morphin as though appraising his possibilities. Now he moved a little closer and said,
I don't believe you.
Riddle came back.
I don't believe you.
Ah, he left her. Serve her right,
I believe you.
Marion filth,"
Your achievement.
said Morphin, spitting on the floor again. "Robbed us mine before she ran off. Where's the locket? Where's Slytherin's locket?" Voldemort did not answer. Morphin was working himself into a rage again. He brandished his knife and shouted, "Dishonored us, she did! That little slag! And who are you coming here and asking questions about all that? It's over, isn't it? It's over!" He looked away, staggering slightly, and Voldemort moved forward. As he did so, an unnatural darkness fell, extinguishing Voldemort's lamp and Morphin's candle, extinguishing everything. Dumbledore's fingers closed tightly on Harry's arm, and they were soaring back into the present again. The soft golden light in Dumbledore's office seemed to dazzle Harry's eyes after the impenetrable darkness. "Is that all?" said Harry at once. "Why did it go dark? What happened?"
Oh no, you sweet summer child.
Aunt Bebby, hello and welcome in. So very glad that you could join us.
Get the shirt and then just maybe. I'm kidding. You have to do something worse. Eat severance.
Because that was all. Because Morphin could not remember anything that happened from that point onward, said Dumbledore, gesturing Harry back to his seat. When he awoke the next day, he was lying on the floor quite alone. Marvelo's ring had gone. Meanwhile, in the village of Little Hangleton, a maid was running along the high street, screaming that there were 3 bodies lying in the drawing room of the big house, Tom Riddle Sr., and his mother and father. The Muggle authorities were perplexed. As far as I am aware, they do not know to this day how the Riddles died, for the Avada Kedavra curse does not usually leave any sign of damage. The exception sits before me, Dumbledore added, with a nod to Harry's scar. The Ministry, on the other hand, knew at once that this was a wizard's murder. They also knew that a convicted Muggle-hater lived across the valley from the Riddle House. A Muggle-hater who had already been imprisoned once for attacking one of the murdered people. So the Ministry called upon Morphin, and they did not need to question him. To use Veritaserum or Leglomancy, he admitted to the murder on the spot, giving details only the murderer could know. He was proud, he said, to have killed the Muggles, and been awaiting his chance all these years. He handed over his wand, which was proved at once to have been used to kill the Riddles, and he permitted himself to be led off to Azkaban without a fight. All that disturbed him was the fact his father's ring had disappeared. Kill me for losing it, he told his captors over and over again. He'll kill me for losing his ring. And that, apparently, was all he ever said again. He lived out the remainder of his life in Azkaban, lamenting the loss of Marvelo's last heirloom, and is buried beside the prison, alongside the other poor souls who expired within its walls. So Voldemort stole Morphin's wand and used it, said Harry, sitting up straight. That is right, said Dumbledore. We have no memories to show us this, but I think I can be fairly sure of what happened. Voldemort stupefied his uncle, took his wand, proceeded across the valley to the big house over the way. There he murdered the Muggle man who had abandoned his witch mother, and for good measure, his Muggle grandparents, thus obliterating the last of the unworthy Riddle line, and revenging himself upon the father who never wanted him. Then he returned to the Gaunt Hovel, performed a bit of complex magic that would implant a false memory in his uncle's mind, laid Morphin's wand beside its unconscious owner, pocketed the ancient ring he wore, and departed. And Morphin never realized he'd done it. Never, said Dumbledore. He gave, as I say, a full and boastful confession.
You had to do that.
But he had this real memory in him all the time. Yes, but it took a great deal of skilled legilimency to coax it out of him, said Dumbledore. And why should anybody delve further into Morphin's mind when he had already confessed to the crime? However, I was able to secure a visit with Morphin in the last weeks of his life, by which time I was attempting to discover as much as I could about Voldemort's past. I extracted this memory with difficulty. When I saw what it contained, I attempted to use it to secure Morphin's release from Azkaban. Before the Ministry reached their decision, however, Morphin had died. But how come the Ministry didn't realize that Voldemort had done all that to Morphin? He asked angrily. He was underage at the time, wasn't he? I thought they could detect underage magic. You are quite right. They can detect magic, but not the perpetrator. You'll remember that you... that you were blamed by the ministry for the hover charm that was, in fact, cast by Dobby, growled Harry. This injustice still rankled. So, if you're underage and you do magic inside an adult witch or wizard's house, the ministry won't know. They will certainly be unable to tell who performed the magic, said Dumbledore, smiling slightly at the look of great indignation on Harry's face. They rely on witch or wizard parents to enforce their offspring's obedience, while within their walls. Well, that's rubbish, snapped Harry. Look what happened here. Look what happened to Morphin. I agree, said Dumbledore. Whatever Morphin was, he did not deserve to die as he did, blamed for murders he did not commit. But it is getting late, and I want you to see this other memory before we part. Dumbledore took from inside of his pocket another crystal phial, and Harry fell silent at once, remembering that Dumbledore had said it was the most important he had collected. And he noticed that the contents proved difficult to empty into the pensieve, as though they had congealed slightly. Did memories go bad?
Because I gave them false hope by accident.
It's 12:56 a.m. where you are. Well, we need to get you off to bed, Val.
7.
Susan, thank you for the heartbeat. I didn't see that come in. And Val, thank you for the Deenies. I appreciate you. Tips to the Tavern Keeper, always deeply appreciated. You flatter me. All right. This will not take long, said Dumbledore, when he had finally emptied the phial. We shall be back before you know it. Once more into the pensieve then. And Harry fell again through the silver surface, landing this time right in front of a man he recognized at once. It was a much younger Horace Slughorn. Harry was so used to him bald that he found the sight of Slughorn with a thick, shiny, straw-coloured hair quite disconcerting. It looked as though he had had his head thatched through. There was a shiny, galleon-sized bald patch on his crown. His moustache, less massive than it was these days, was gingery blonde. He was not quite as rotund as the Slughorn Harry knew, though the golden buttons of his richly embroidered waistcoat were taking a fair amount of strain. His little feet resting upon a velvet poof, he was sitting back in a comfortable winged armchair, with one hand grasping a small glass of wine, and the other searching through a box of crystallized pineapple. Harry looked around as Dumbledore appeared beside him and saw that they were standing in Slughorn's office. Half a dozen boys were sitting around Slughorn, all on harder or lower seats than his, and all in their mid-teens. Harry recognized Voldemort at once. This was the most handsome face, and he looked the most relaxed of all the boys. His right hand lay negligently upon the arm of his chair. With a jolt, Harry saw that he was wearing Marvolo's gold and black ring. He had already killed his father. Sir, is it true Professor Merrythought is retiring? He asked. Tom, if I knew, I couldn't tell you, said Slughorn, wagging a reproving, sugar-coated finger at Riddle, though ruining the effect slightly by winking. I must say, I'd like to know where you get your information, boy. More knowledgeable than half his staff you are. Riddle smiled, and the other boys laughed and cast him admiring looks. What with your uncanny ability to know what you shouldn't, and your careful flattery of people who matter, thank you for the pineapple, by the way. Oh, quite right. It is my favourite. As several of the boys tittered, something very odd happened. The whole room suddenly filled with a thick white fog, so Harry could see nothing but the face of Dumbledore, who was standing beside him. Then Slughorn's voice rang out through the mist, unnaturally loud. You go wrong, boy. Mark my words. The fog was cleared as suddenly as it appeared, and yet nobody made any allusion to it. Nor did anybody look as though anything unusual had just happened. Bewildered, Harry looked around as a small golden clock standing upon Slughorn's desk chimed 11 o'clock. Good gracious! Is that the time already? Said Slughorn. You'd better get going, boys, or we'll all be in trouble. Lestrange, I want your essay by tomorrow, or it's detention. Same goes for you, Avery. Slughorn pulled himself out of his armchair and carried his empty glass over to his desk as the boys filed out. Voldemort, however, stayed behind, and I could tell he had dawdled deliberately, wanting to be the last in the room with Slughorn. Look sharp, Tom, said Slughorn, turning around and finding him still present. You don't want to be caught out of bed of hours. And you, a prefect?
Sir, I want to ask you something.
Ask away, then, my boy, ask away.
Sir, I wondered what you know about Horcruxes.
And it all happened over again. The dense fog filled the room so that Harry could not see Slughorn or Voldemort at all. Only Dumbledore smiling serenely beside him. Then Slughorn's voice boomed out again, just as it had done before. I don't know anything about Horcruxes. I wouldn't tell you if I did. Now get out of here at once, and don't let me catch you mentioning them again. Well, that's that, said Dumbledore placidly beside Harry. Time to go. And Harry's feet left the floor to fall seconds later, back onto the rug in front of Dumbledore's desk.
That's all there is,
said Harry blankly. Dumbledore had said that this was the most important memory of all, but he could not see what was so significant about it. Admittedly, the fog and the fact that nobody seemed to have noticed it was odd, but other than nothing seemed to have happened except Voldemort had asked questions and failed to get any answers. As you might have noticed, said Dumbledore, reseating himself behind the desk, that memory has been tampered with.
Tampered with?
Harry repeated, sitting back down too. Certainly, said Dumbledore. Professor Slughorn has meddled with his own recollections.
But why would he do that?
Because I think he is ashamed of what he remembers, said Dumbledore. He has tried to rework the memory to show himself in a better light, obliterating those parts which he does not wish me to see. It is, as you will have noticed, very crudely done. And that is all to the good, for it shows that the true memory is still there beneath the alterations. And so, for the first time, I'm giving you homework, Harry. It will be your job to persuade Professor Slughorn to divulge the real memories, which will undoubtedly be our most crucial piece of information of all. Harry stared at him.
But, sir,
he said, keeping his voice respectful as possible,
you don't need me. You could use Legilmency or Veritaserum.
Professor Slughorn is an extremely able wizard who will be expecting both, said Dumbledore. He is much more accomplished at occlumency than poor Morphin Gaunt, and I would be astonished if he has not carried an antidote to Veritaserum with him ever since I coerced him into giving me this travesty of a recollection. No, I think it would be foolish to attempt to wrest the truth from Professor Slughorn by force, and might do much more harm than good. I do not wish him to leave Hogwarts. However, he has his weaknesses, like the rest of us, and I believe that you are the one person he might be able to penetrate his defenses. It is most important that we secure the true memory, Harry. How important? We will only know when we have seen the real thing. So good luck, and good night. A little taken aback by the abrupt dismissal, Harry got to his feet quickly.
Good night, sir.
As he closed the study door behind him, he distinctly heard Phineas Nigelus say, I don't see why the boys should be able to do it better than you, Dumbledore. I wouldn't expect you to, Phineas, replied Dumbledore, and Fawkes gave another low, musical cry. And so ends chapter 17 of Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince, my friends. Oh boy, what a spectacular end! Ugh. Oh. I am tuckered out, friends. Alright, let's get 2 more songs under our belt tonight. And then I will send you all off to bed, friends. Good night, Tonks. Thanks for sticking with us. Have a wonderful night. Good night, Val. Rest well, and may you rise tomorrow ready to conquer the day. It was a long one. It was quite long. I spent most of the time tonight reading, and those 2 chapters almost lasted the full 3 hours. Valhalla Calling and Misty Mountain were already slated. Excellent. Frost, I appreciate you for that. Let's go ahead and do... I think we could do Misty Mountain first, then we'll do Valhalla Calling, because I don't know if my voice will last through both of them if I do Valhalla Calling first. Because I do know that Petra had requested Valhalla Calling.
Okay, show me.
So let's do Misty Mountain first. Huzzah, Bear! Huzzah! Black Knight, I'm glad you enjoyed, my friend. Let me top off my mug here. And then we'll get some songs of the dwarves in. I wish that the song Diggy Diggy Hole was not so repetitive, because I would do that one on stream. But I still managed to do one last note. Like 110, 115 gods to write their names, meaning that you're putting in a lot of work, Batty. A lot of work. Good night, everyone. Thanks for reading, Castle. Good night, Mary Beth. Thank you for joining us. Rest well, and I will see you back here come Tuesday, and the lady will see you all on Sunday for another spectacular day. Ashley, thank you for the goats. I appreciate you. Don't send real goats. The lady will want to sleep with them. Not sleep with them. She'll want to have them. She'll want to snuggle them, is what I should say. They gotta be careful what you say on the internet. Rest well, Frost. I appreciate you, brother. Have a good night. Okay, we're doing the Peter Hollins version again. So sit down and join me. No satyrs allowed in this house. I do have some prejudices I refuse to let go of, and half human, half animals I do not allow in my house. Ever. Far over the misty mountains cold, to dungeons deep and caverns old, we must away ere break of day, to find a long forgotten gold. The pines were roaring on the height, the winds were moaning in the night. The fire was red, it flaming spread. The trees like torches blazed with light. No, Bear, you're allowed in. You're different. You're bear and man, but you're not a half bear, half man. It's different. The wind was on the withered heath, but in the forest stirred no leaf.
It makes you
Their shadows lay be night or day, and dark things silent crept beneath. The wind went on from west to east. All movement in the forest ceased, but shrill and harsh across the marsh, its whistling voices were released. Farewell we call to hearth and hall. The wind may blow and rain may fall. We must away ere break of day. Too far over the wood and mountain tall. It's alright, Faye, you're allowed to have bad days. Just don't let the bad days determine how you feel about every day. That's all. My only requirement is you don't let the bad days control all of your days. You're allowed to have them, but don't let them dominate your life. Far over the misty mountains cold, to dungeons deep and caverns old, we must away ere break of day, to find our long forgotten gold. Thank you for the song, my friends. You understood what I meant? Actually, good. I don't like to have too poor of misunderstandings. Castle, thank you sincerely for providing Misty Mountain. My absolute pleasure, the ghost of Esther and Elsie. Alright. Next, we are doing Valhalla Calling. Now, if you've never been here for Valhalla Calling, it is a wonderful song that was created by a gentleman who goes by the Miracle of Sound. It's a Viking sea shanty of sorts, and it is absolutely an incredible song. But we do it a little bit differently than it is done elsewhere. We sing the verses normally, but then when we get to the chorus, we do what is called throat singing or druid singing. And it can be a little bit grating. It has been known to cause bleeding of the ears, separation of joints from other joints. It has been known to cause shutdown and disruption of the lymphatic system, the nervous system, and the vascular system, bleeding from the eyes and ears, as well as spontaneous pregnancy and spontaneous isekaiing into other realms. So if you decide to stick around and listen to the song after you have been given this warning, we cannot be held liable for anything. You have been warned, and the tavern will take no responsibility for any negative effects that result from you listening to Valhalla Calling here in the tavern. What if most days are bad, though? It's an interesting question, Faywitch. When you finally understand that the natural state of man is poverty and struggle, you realize that the good days are a gift and that the bad days are normal. Most days are going to be mediocre at best, bad at worst. But if you continue working towards good days, that's right, spontaneous combustion as well, Tyson. Thank you. I forgot about spontaneous combustion. That does happen on occasion, especially during the plucking the strings of destiny part of the song. All right, friends, let us begin. Ships on the vigor of the waves are skimming, bearing summits to the verdant plains. Each horizon is a new beginning. Rise and reign, Far from the fjords and the ice cold currents, ravens soar over new frontiers. Songs and sagas of a fate determined, shields and spears. Vows of favor or the thrill of plunder, pull together for the clan and kin. Clank of hammers and the crash of thunder, pound within. That's where you cover your ears if you need to. Oh, the echoes of eternity. Oh, Valhalla calling me. Oh, to pluck the strings of destiny. Oh, Valhalla calling me. Valhalla calling me. Sails are swaying on the crimson rivers, blood and glory in the fighting fields, shields are shattered into splintered timber, iron and steel. Fires are rising and the bells are ringing, glory take us into Odin's halls, golden glimmer and the sound of singing, as God's call. Oh, the echoes of eternity. Oh, Valhalla calling me. Oh, to pluck the strings of destiny. Oh, Valhalla calling me. Valhalla calling me. Wind and the waves will carry me. Wind and the waves will set me free. Wind and the waves will carry me. Wind and the waves will set me free. Last time. Oh, the echoes of eternity. Oh, Valhalla calling me. Oh, to pluck the strings of destiny. Oh, Valhalla calling me. Valhalla calling me. Thank you for the song, my friend. Oh, Castle, you know what happens when I'm here when you sing the song. I just get worried that his throat might get really sore again, so I'll have to send plenty of hydrates. That's alright. That's why we saved it till last, because it was right and well. Good night, Castle. May you find restful sleep. I extend my sincere gratitude for the exceptional evening of storytelling and shanties. Good night to you, ghost of Esther and Elsie. It's always wonderful to have you. Black Knight, Ashley, thank you very much. We really love plucking Destiny's strings. On occasion. On occasion. That and pushing her buttons. Thank you for the hydrates, for which I appreciate you. Thank you kindly. 1,000, or is it 1 million out of 10? Thank you, Black Knight. Cheers for that. Indeed, Tyson, she is trying to drown me. Tries not to send too many hydrates, though. I don't want to drown him either. Alright, my friends. Well, that is all for this fine evening that I have for you. We have something very exciting that might be coming next Friday. The lady and I are trying to get caught up on work now that everything is working again, trying to get regular videos out. If you push Elsie's buttons, you're going to get a howl. We will raid out, Milu. I'll see if any of our friends are on, and if they are, we'll go ahead and raid out. No, don't leave us. I'm sorry, Black Knight. It's very late. I have to get back so I can start making more stories for you all. Yes, we are, Bear. Yes, we are. We'll raid out over on Twitch. But for everybody else, this is where the night ends. And while it is very sad that we must part, the lady will be back on Sunday, and I will be back on Tuesday and Thursday. And I have many, many more stories coming for you guys this week, both short and long. I appreciate you all so much for all you do, for all of the love and passion that you guys bring, and the excitement that it's infectious. When you guys are excited, the lady and I are excited. That's absolutely lovely to see what Falcor is on. We'll probably raid to her then. I'll be in town Sunday. I may not be here, Castle. Well, we will hope that you make it back in time, Esther. But if not, have a safe and lovely trip to town. All right, my friends, the portals must now close. And while it is a sad thing, they will open again. And when they do, there will be more stories waiting for you. So until then, I will bid you all stay bloodthirsty, my friends. And we'll see you for the next one. Have a good night.
To that point, yeah. Alright, rest again. She should be back in the temple.